Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Hello to Bella in the live chat already, which is cool to see. Today, we'll be going over a couple videos. The first video is about just the timeline of events, what happened to Nancy between the time that Tommaso dropped her off, 9:45 p.m., and 1:47 a.m., when Nestcam's disconnected there. Did anything happen in those 4 hours? I mean, there's a lot of theories going around about what even happened. Did Nancy even get dropped off? We don't know. The only clues that we have to that is that garage door opening. The garage door opening and closing. Is that proof enough? I don't know. And granted, there's going to be a very important disclaimer in the beginning of this video too, by the way. And it's that channel Crime Unresolved. So some people don't like them, but a lot of people watch them. So I do think it's important to go over what they're talking about. I got people popping in here. Charity, Miss Kim, Bethany. Bethany, I saw, found me on Facebook too, which is cool. Christy, Mr. Rooster, Cat, Rammer Jammer. Thank you, Rammer Jammer. Good eye. You have a good eye. Got the old ears lowered, as they call it. Ruby, welcome. Let's see. A big announcement. This Thursday, Dr. Salerno is going to join me live. I haven't decided yet if we'll go over videos or just talk and then have like people ask questions via super chat or something. I don't know. But he'll be joining me. I haven't decided exactly how it will look. Maybe it'll look like us breaking down other narcissism videos. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think it'll be interesting. No matter what we do, it'll be interesting. So I think that's cool. Glad how has everyone's weekend been so far? I was very tired yesterday, which is why I wasn't here. And not to mention, there was nothing really going on anyway. Though I could have gone over this first video yesterday. But I rather said, you know what? There's not much else going on. So I'll take the day off. Hopefully, y'all didn't miss me too much. But I'm back again today. Tony, welcome. Please remember to like the video on your way in, folks. Put your DNA on that like button. Likes are free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Magic Mike. A narc-free weekend. It sounds like a great weekend to me. Very good, Bethany. Filling up on the spirituality. I love it. And thank you, Charity, for that. Nina, welcome. Hello from the Bronx. You're not so far from me. I'm in South Jersey. I got one of my tattoos in the Bronx. Or was it Brooklyn? Actually, it was Brooklyn. I still remember Rooster's joke about having his hair run up and leave him in his late 20s. Lika. Is it Leica or Lika? All right, we got a good group of people here so far. So I guess we should begin. Lika. Thank you. I used to make the same mistake with Eva because her username is Eval, E-V-A-L, but the L is part of something else, and she corrected me, Eva. Ward, welcome. Montana, welcome. Big Sky, Montana, right? Isn't that what they call it? Lika. I love it. Now, this is an important disclaimer from this video. But this video is going to break down some things. It's going to give us an opportunity to go over some things. Yeah, it's probably the AI video. But again, the last time I went over this, it was really popular. So it's important to kind of talk about what's talked about in these things. Allison, welcome. One of my girlfriend's names in my mid-20s was Allison. That's right. Big Sky, Montana. I love it. So here's the important disclaimer. And this is especially important since we had to address that thing with Ashley Banfield, how Savannah Guthrie was upset at Ashley Banfield. This video we're about to watch is based entirely, and this video is from Crime Unresolved. This video is based entirely on publicly available reporting from established news organizations, official statements, and on-camera interviews. The purpose of this content is commentary and analysis on matters of public record involving a missing person investigation. It is not intended to accuse, defame, or assert criminal wrongdoing by any individual. All individuals mentioned are presumed innocent unless proven otherwise in a court of law. Any conclusions discussed reflect publicly reported information and opinions expressed by named sources, not personal knowledge of undisclosed facts. This channel encourages viewers to review primary sources and form their own conclusions. You know what? I like that disclaimer. Donna, welcome. Oh, editing a multitasking panda tonight, Kat, eh? I like it. Teresa, how are you? Rooster. Me too. Same with me. Wink says, hello, Wink. So many unanswered questions about that night. Like we know her phone was left behind. So have they figured out how to unlock it to see the final calls and texts? Damn good question, Wink. That's something I'd like to know too. But I think they're withholding it from us for now. I don't like it. Thank you, Charity.
For 6 weeks, every video about Nancy Guthrie has started in the same place. 1:47 a.m. The camera goes dark. A man on the porch. 41 minutes inside the house. Blood on the steps. Pacemaker disconnects at 2:28. The car at 2:36. That is the story everyone has been telling. That is the timeline.
This is good here. Hot ham, HH. Welcome to the Chuckle Hut, she says. I love it. That's what I call, when people make a funny, I call it the Chuckle Hut. So let's review this timeline real quick. Nancy Guthrie approximate timeline. We've gone over this before, of course. January 31st, 2026, 5:32 p.m. Nancy travels to local family's home. Annie and Tommaso. 9:48 p.m. Family drops Nancy off at home and garage door opens. 9:50 p.m. Garage door closes. February 1st, later that night. 1:47 a.m. Doorbell camera disconnects. 2:12 a.m. Software detects person on camera. No video available because there's no subscription. Remember, folks, if you have a loved one, make sure they have subscriptions to these things, or preferably a home security system that's going to notify law enforcement if something shady is going on. 2:28 a.m. Pacemaker app shows disconnect from phone. 11:56 a.m. Family checks on Nancy. So there's a large gap there, right? So two large gaps. 9:48 to 1:47. 2:28 to 11:56. 9.5 hours. Long time. Family checks on Nancy. 911 call to PCSD. Pima County Sheriff's Department. 12:15 p.m. patrol arrives. That's your timeline. It's good. It's a good review.
Line everyone has been analyzing, and none of it has produced an arrest. I am not starting there. I am starting 4 hours earlier, at 9:50 p.m. on January 31st, when a garage door closed in the Catalina foothills, and the only person who can confirm what happened on the other side of it is the man the FBI has visited more than 5 times since. Tommaso Cioni says he drove Nancy home from dinner at his house. He says he watched her enter through the garage. He says the door closed behind her. He says she was safely inside. That is his account. The only independent confirmation that Nancy entered that house is a garage door closing at 9:50 p.m. No camera recorded her walking inside. No neighbor saw the drop-off. Everything else comes from the account of the last person to see her. And then there is the medication. Nancy had an evening dose, heart medication she was supposed to take around 10 p.m. She was dropped off between 9:45 and 9:50. She had 5 to 15 minutes before that dose was due. It was found the next day, completely untouched on the kitchen counter. An 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker, who the sheriff said could not survive 24 hours without her medication, got home, walked past the counter where her pills were waiting, and did not take them. Either she forgot, Possible, but unusual for a woman described by the sheriff as having great sound mind. Or she went straight to bed. Possible, but that means she broke her own medical routine on the one night it mattered most. Or something interrupted her before she reached the counter. Or she never reached the
Kat asks, where was I the night of her disappearance? Probably live streaming if I had to guess.
counter at all. Her hearing aids were out. She could hear nothing. Her phone was on the nightstand. Her wallet was in the house. Her car was in the garage. Everything that belonged to Nancy was exactly where it should be. Everything except Nancy. For 6 weeks, the internet has been focused on who the man on the porch was. I have been asking a different question. What happened between 9:50 p.m. and 1:47 a.m.? Because those 4 hours have not been explained.
And now my own flock of black sheep is telling me my eyes match the person on the porch cam. I am devastated.
They have not been investigated publicly. And when you look at what was found and what was not found in Tommaso Cioni's car after 40 days in police custody, in the desert outside Tucson, where searchers reportedly recovered size 12 women's pants and a black jacket, in the connections between Tommaso's music scene and the man who sent a ransom text directly to his phone, not to Savannah, not to the FBI, to Tommaso personally, those 4 hours start to look less like a gap and more like the.
And that is an interesting point that wasn't emphasized, if indeed it's true, that one of the ransom notes was sent directly to Tommaso. Interesting. What do you think about that, chat? Is that significant in any way? It certainly really hasn't been emphasized by others very much. And speaking of others, Brian Netton and now Ashley Banfield, 2 nights in a row, no videos from either one of them. Crazy.
The answer. This is the video that goes where nobody else has gone. Not the porch, not the backward walker, not the sheriff's contradictions. The 4 hours before any of that happened. And by the end, this case is not going to look the way it looked when you clicked on this video. Nancy Guthrie took her hearing aids out every night before bed. Powerful ones. Without them, she heard nothing. She was 84 years old. She had a pacemaker that synced to her Apple devices while she slept. She took medication every morning and every evening that managed serious heart conditions. She weighed 150 pounds. And every night, after the hearing aids came out, she went to sleep in a house in the Arizona desert with nobody else in it.
Oh, wow. So I do believe someone close to the family probably arranged this. I don't know who. I don't know what the motive was. I think punishment or revenge for Savannah Guthrie. But also, big news from the chat. They said to me, Brian left Arizona on Friday. Is that true? I mean, that would also explain why there's no more videos, at least for the last couple days, from him. And maybe News Nation pulled the plug for now. Let me know about that, chat. That sounds interesting.
She had raised 3 children alone after her husband Charles died on a mining trip in Mexico in 1988. She was 46. She became the mother and the father overnight. Former FBI agent Maureen O'Connell, whose own father died when she was the same age as Savannah, described women.
I didn't know that. I think she might have mentioned that once, but I had forgotten. But Maureen O'Connell getting a shout out. We love her here.
Women like Nancy as fiercely independent, the kind who will not go into assisted living, the kind who wants to stay in their own home no matter what anyone says. Nancy was that woman. She did not drive at night, not because she could not, because she did not like pulling into a dark, empty house alone after dark. During the day she was fine, but evenings she relied on family or Uber. Every Uber ride home was a stranger who now knew her address.
And that's a good point, too. A lot of elderly folks don't like driving at nighttime. So she had a car. The car was in the garage. She was 84 years old. But at nighttime, she didn't like to drive. Totally understandable.
That she was elderly, that she arrived alone after dark, and that the house at the end of the desert road had a camera that was not recording. Her daughter Savannah earns $8 million a year in New York. Her son Cameron is a retired Air Force colonel who flew F-16s. Her daughter Annie lives 4 miles away with her husband Tommaso. Nancy had family. She had resources around her. but there was no live-in caretaker, no medical alert pendant, no panic button, and a Nest doorbell camera with no active cloud subscription, a camera that could detect motion but was not saving footage to any server. For all practical purposes, it was decoration, and the people who spent time in that house knew it. On the evening of January 31st, Nancy took an Uber to Annie and Tommaso's house. She arrived at 5:32 p.m., according to the Pima County Sheriff's timeline. Dinner, games, a margarita. Savannah once told her on television not to drink the whole one because she was small. A normal Friday. At approximately 9:48 p.m.
And also, a disclaimer from my end here. Just because this guy says it in this video does not mean I agree with what his conclusions are. I don't know. Is it possible Tommaso could have been a part of it? It's possible. But what evidence are people pointing to? I don't think it was him on the front porch. Are people thinking he orchestrated it? I don't know. I'm not saying I know the answers to it. What I do think is the motive was revenge punishment for Savannah. Why? Who did it? That I'm not sure of. So keep that in mind. What he says in this video is not necessarily what I believe.
Tommaso drove her home. The drive takes about 10 minutes. The garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. Tommaso says he confirmed she was inside. Then he drove back to his house, 4 miles. And for the next 14 hours, nobody contacted Nancy. Nobody called. Nobody texted. Nobody drove 4 miles to check on an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker who was about to take her hearing aids out and become completely deaf in a house where the security camera was not recording. She was not reported missing because someone was worried about her. She was reported missing because she did not show up to watch a church live stream at a friend's house the next day. Around 11 a.m., family members went to check. They searched the house. They searched the
And that's a good note too. We were confused about that before, but the confusing part was, how did they know she wasn't at church? And what happens is Nancy goes to a friend's house to watch remote church, a church in New York that Savannah goes to. So Nancy would go to the friend's house, watch remote church. It would be the church that Savannah goes to in New York. So Nancy did not go to this friend's house to watch remote church on this morning, of course.
Property. No sign of her. At noon, they called 911. By then, whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie had been over for at least 9 hours. Now I need to walk you through what the evidence says happened inside that house. Not what the sheriff has told you. Not the summary you have heard repeated on every news channel for 6 weeks. The actual evidence. What it shows, what it does not show, and what has never been explained. At 1:47 a.m., the Nest doorbell camera was physically disabled. Someone put their hands on it. The FBI recovered residual footage through a partnership with Google, images and video that were never supposed to exist because the camera was not recording to the cloud. What they recovered shows a figure on the porch who moves through the space like someone who lives there, not searching, not scanning, walking directly to the camera with the kind of muscle memory that only comes from repetition. Body language analysts called it ownership behavior. He taps the camera lens twice before disabling it. Casual, like checking a light switch on the way out of a room. He is wearing black nitrile gloves, a ski mask with facial hair visible underneath, a mustache or goatee, a 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack from Walmart with reflective strips, a belly band holster with a firearm strapped in the wrong position, and something in his pocket, an antenna, a protruding shape that does not match a phone. The FBI described him as 5'9" to 5'10" with an average build. Former profiler Jim Clemente identified what appeared
And we've gone over Jim Clemente too.
to be a tattoo or marking on his right wrist, visible when the glove shifted during movement. What happened over the next 41 minutes has not been fully disclosed. The camera was down. What we know comes from what was left behind. Blood on the front porch, blood down the driveway. The droplets were round with intact spheres. Former FBI agent O'Connell assessed that this pattern indicates the blood fell straight down from a stationary height.
Mavs in the South, they call blocking people bless and release.
Consistent with someone being carried rather than walking under their own power. No voids from footprints stepping through the blood. No smearing. No drag marks. O'Connell's read. Nancy was wrapped in something, carried through the oak front door, past the wrought iron gate, and placed in a vehicle. Nancy weighed 150 pounds. One person could do it.
By the way, please remember to like the video. Leave your DNA on that like button. Likes are free. Likes for my spirit animal, Shadow the Night Owl. And say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat. We've got a very lively group of people. Eccentric, but also awesome. And thank you very much for everyone who's been supporting the channel thus far. Super chats are a great way to get questions answered and to support the channel. Super stickers, great way to support the channel. Becoming a channel member is a great way to support the channel. And I have members only live streams for the members. That might not be Thursday this week. It might be a different. Actually, I don't even know how many times I'll do them a month. We'll have to see.
But it would not be easy, and it would not be quick. The medication sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Morning dose, evening dose, both still there. The phone was on the nightstand. The wallet was in the house. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was taken except Nancy. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker lost its Bluetooth connection to her phone on the nightstand. That is the last electronic trace Nancy Guthrie left in this world. 41 minutes from camera down to pacemaker disconnect. 41 minutes of someone inside that house who was not rushing, who was not panicking, who moved through the rooms the way you move through your own home at 2 in the morning, when you know every creaking floorboard and every silent step. But the crime on February 1st did not start on February 1st. On January 23rd, 9 days before the abduction, a video appeared on the Ring Neighbors app. A man walking backward up a residential driveway in the Catalina foothills, 6.5 miles from Nancy's house. Not stumbling, not drunk, walking backward with deliberate, measured steps. His
There is no walking backwards. That's a blunder in the video.
back flat to the camera, chin tucked. Consumer security cameras do not record constantly.
Oh, we got a super sticker from Miss Kim. Thank you so much, Miss Kim. You've been a great support to the channel here. She helps me get likes and reminds people to subscribe to the channel and to super chat and super sticker like this. Thank you very much, Miss Kim. Your support is very appreciated.
They rely on passive infrared sensors to detect body heat and motion. When someone enters the frame, the sensor wakes the processor, the lens adjusts, the Wi-Fi handshakes with the server. That process takes 1 to 2 seconds. Walk forward, and the camera captures your face during those seconds. Walk backward, and it captures nothing but the back of a hoodie. By the time the lens is fully live, your face is already shielded. This man was exploiting a specific technical vulnerability in consumer cameras, using nothing but his body. That is not improvisation. That is research. The house he chose sits in the Catalina foothills. Same isolated desert homes, same long driveways, same dark sky ordinances, minimal street lighting, deep shadow. 6.5 miles from Nancy's front door. Far enough to avoid any connection if caught. Close enough to replicate the exact environment of the target. He was running a simulation. When a dog barked, he ran. But he maintained his backward orientation. He suppressed the reflex to turn toward the sound. He would rather fall than give the camera one frame of his face. That is discipline that comes from rehearsal, from someone who played this moment in their mind so many times that execution overrode instinct. The backpack he wore was visually identical to the one seen at Nancy's house 9 days later. The Ozark Trail 25-liter pack with distinctive reflective safety strips. Same bag, different house.
Then that's another error. The front porch video is from a Nest cam. This video might have shown it as a Ring cam, but it was not a Ring cam. The videos that are in Nancy's house were a Nest cam, and there was multiple Nest cams. One was on the front porch. One was by the pool. One was by the side of the house. One of the updates the other day was we got thumbnail images, photos from the other Nest cams, not video and not from the day of the abduction. But they're all Nest cams, not Ring.
House. Now compare the two appearances. On January 23rd, the suspect is terrified, hunched, paranoid about every angle. On February 1st, he walks forward onto Nancy's porch, calm. He taps the camera twice. He is not afraid of the technology anymore, because 9 days ago, the police did not knock on his door. He learned he was invisible. By February 1st, he was not testing, he was executing. The sheriff flagged January 11th as a separate date of interest, 21 days before the abduction, and requested neighborhood footage from 9 p.m. to midnight. He never explained why. 3 dates, 3 weeks, January 11th, January 23rd, February 1st, observation, rehearsal, execution. 4 major news networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN, independently confirmed through law enforcement sources that the suspect visited Nancy.
And I mean, I think this video is AI, but it might be someone trying to imitate AI. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because we're still just going over it anyway.
Nancy's actual home on multiple occasions before the night she was taken. In one FBI image, the suspect has no backpack. In the video, he does. Same clothing, different equipment load, 2 different visits. The Pima County Sheriff's Department called those reports purely speculative. 4 networks, 4 independent sources, the sheriff standing alone on the other side. Now, the camera's next door, because this is where the sophistication becomes undeniable. On March 6th, FBI agents went door to door in Nancy's neighborhood, asking whether anyone experienced internet disruptions on the night of February 1st. Multiple homeowners said yes. One neighbor, close enough that you can see Nancy's house from the yard, found his Ring camera history was not available for that night. But not all his cameras, only the ones facing Nancy's property. The cameras on the other side of his house, same router, same network, same power, recorded normally. That is not an internet outage. That is targeted electronic disruption aimed at specific devices.
I don't agree with this. So this is wrong. This is not a Ring cam. This is just random footage of it. But I don't think jammers were used. I think it's more likely that there was just dead zones. That's what I think. So I don't agree with his assessment here that it's targeted signal jamming. No, I do not agree.
A specific direction. Most people hear Wi-Fi jammer and picture a blunt device that kills everything. But Nancy's Nest camera still captured footage before being disabled. Her pacemaker stayed connected until 2:28. A brute force jammer would have knocked both out immediately. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffender confirmed, whatever caused the disruption was not a full jammer. There is a third type of device, a de-authentication tool. It sends commands within the Wi-Fi protocol that trick specific devices into disconnecting. It is surgical, directional. It can target the cameras on one side of a house while leaving the other side untouched.
I don't agree with this either.
It costs less than $30. It fits in a pocket, and it would explain exactly what the neighbors described. The same neighbor whose cameras went dark said their dog woke them up at the same time, middle of the night, completely out of character. The dog went outside and stood staring toward Nancy's house with its ears up. Eric Maldonado, 29 years with Pima County, said dogs hear frequencies humans cannot. The dog reacted to something real at the exact moment the cameras went blind. Behind Nancy's house is a stretch of open desert. The neighbor lives on the same patch. If the suspect approached through the desert from the back, not the street where a parked car would be noticed, he would have passed close enough to those cameras for a device in his pocket to knock them offline as he walked by. Fox News drone footage later showed smashed floodlights at the rear of Nancy's property. Front camera disabled by hand. Rear lighting destroyed.
That's news to me. If there was indeed smashed floodlights, I don't remember hearing that. Chat, do you remember hearing that? Was there smashed floodlights in the backyard? So again, I'm not vouching for the accuracy of this video, but I think it's making us use our problem-solving skills and remembering skills to figure out which things are true and maybe not quite. Because if you didn't know any better, yeah, you might think it was a Ring cam, but it wasn't. We know that the front porch was a Nest cam.
Points of entry preparation. One person could do both, but 2 people doing them simultaneously is what retired Las Vegas Lieutenant Randy Sutton assessed as a potential indicator of multiple suspects. 8 minutes after the pacemaker disconnected, a camera 2.5 miles away on Camino Real captured a vehicle at 2:36 a.m. NBC correspondent Liz Kreutz drove from Nancy's house to that camera. 6 minutes. Pacemaker at 2:28. 6 minutes of driving. Car appears at 2:36. 2 minutes of margin. The kind of pause you make when you stop at the end of a street to check mirrors.
And this has been turned into nothing too. Like, we went over this video before. This is nothing as far as we know. And Annie Guthrie did finally get her car back. The other guy, Luke Daly, got his car back long before. But Annie did just get her car back after an exhaustive search. But they got it back. Why did it take so long? I don't know. I mean, what do you think, chat? What do you think they were looking for?
Before pulling onto the back road out, the sheriff confirmed the timing matches. The camera belongs to a couple who live outside the search perimeter. Nobody from law enforcement asked for their footage. They found it themselves and brought it in. That is the crime. Now let me show you the web that surrounds it, because this case does not exist in a vacuum. It exists inside a network of people, relationships, and documented connections that all lead back to the same place. Tommaso Cioni has been part of Tucson's music scene for nearly 20 years. His band, Early Black, plays post-punk and shoegaze at local venues. In 2007, he met drummer Dominic Evans through a classified ad. They have been playing together ever since. Their debut album was called Life, Love, Love, Murder. They performed at venues across Tucson, including the Flycatcher, a gritty bar in the heart of the city's alternative scene. In February 2026, a man named Derek Calla was arrested.
And by the way, Jen Koffendorfer, she was going over one of this guy's videos, I believe, a couple days ago. She was disputing some of the things. She wasn't playing it, but she was kind of reading the script of it and saying what she didn't agree with. And I'm glad she did that, by the way.
His crime, sending a text message directly to Tommaso and Annie's phone that read, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." He also made a short call to their number. Authorities ruled it a cruel hoax with no real connection to the kidnapping. Calla was charged, and the case was treated as an opportunistic fraud. But Derek Calla did not pick Tommaso's number out of a phone book. Calla performs under the name Secret Mutilator in the same Tucson underground music scene that Tommaso has been part of for years. He has documented connections to other figures in the local scene who share venues, social circles, and events with Early Black's orbit. In a city the size of Tucson, where the alternative music community is maybe 200 or 300 people, those overlaps are tight. The man who sent the ransom text to Tommaso was not a stranger on the other side of the country. He was someone who moved in the same circles, someone close enough to have Tommaso's phone number. That does not make Derek Calla the kidnapper. Authorities have already determined it was a hoax, but it raises a question that has not been answered. How many people in Tommaso's social world had access to information about Nancy, her address, her routine, her vulnerability, her famous daughter? In a tight-knit scene where everyone knows everyone, where people share stages and share conversations, information travels without anyone needing to ask for it directly. You hear things. You absorb details about the people in your circle. And if one of those people happens to be the son-in-law of an 84-year-old woman living alone in the Catalina foothills, with a camera that does not record and a gate that does not always lock, that information has value to the wrong person. Now the car, because this is where the physical evidence meets the timeline. Tommaso and Annie's blue...
By the way, speaking of this, Jay for Justice had a short where he was in front of the house and Tommaso comes out the house. You can't hear what he says, but you hear the guy say, "I'm just filming the trail or something and I'll leave." But you see Tommaso come out. We'll play that.
Blue Honda CR-V was seized by investigators early in the case. As of March 11th, 40 days later, it has not been returned. It is currently at a mechanic's shop being put back together after what investigative reporter Dave Mack described as an exhaustive search. The Pima County Sheriff's Department told Parade they are in the process of returning it, but have no exact date. 40 days. A car that the sheriff says belongs to people he has cleared. Still in evidence, still being processed, still not returned. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer raised several possibilities for why the car matters. Was Nancy followed from Annie and Tommaso's house on the night of January 31st? Was a tracking device placed on the vehicle? Did someone interface with the car in a way that left fingerprints or DNA? The car is the last enclosed space Nancy occupied before she entered her home. Whatever biological evidence she left in that vehicle, hair, skin cells, fibers, is being compared against whatever was found inside her house and on her porch. If a third party's DNA appears in that car, investigators have a direct link between the suspect and the last ride Nancy ever took. Coffindaffer also made a legal observation that cuts both ways. She said all searches of Annie and Tommaso's property have been consent searches, not probable cause warrants. She argues this means investigators do not have enough evidence to suspect them.
I mean, that would make sense too, right? If they were all consent searches, they're trying to cooperate. And I think also if there was evidence, there'd probably be an arrest or something, right? But instead there's been nothing. There's been no arrests. There's been people detained and asked questions, but that's not necessarily being arrested. And there's been no official suspects besides them saying anyone can be a suspect. No one's ruled out until Sheriff Nanos did rule out family and spouses, which again, only a prosecutor is really supposed to be able to do that, right?
But consent means something else too. It means Annie and Tommaso agreed to let investigators disassemble their vehicle. It means they opened their home for multiple searches. It means they allowed cameras to be removed from their property, and their septic tank to be examined, and suitcases to be carried out during a late-night warrant execution, where officers spent hours photographing rooms. People who have nothing to hide cooperate fully, but people who are confident the evidence will not lead back to them also cooperate fully. Cooperation is not innocence. It is a behavior that both innocent people and prepared people produce. Nancy's own car was also impounded from her garage. The status of that vehicle has not been publicly updated. Now the desert. Because something was
And again, she did just get back that car.
found out there. Independent searchers working the terrain around Tucson reportedly recovered clothing during their search for Nancy. Size 12 women's pants and a black jacket. The items were found in the desert, and photographs were shared on social media. Authorities have
And that's the stuff that guy Jim found, right? That's what everyone was saying.
not publicly confirmed any connection between the clothing and the case. I am presenting this as a development, not as confirmed evidence. But the detail exists, and in a case where Nancy was carried out of her home in the middle of the night and has not been seen since, clothing found in the desert within the search radius is not something you set aside without examination. Eric Maldonado, the retired Pima County deputy who worked burglaries in these exact neighborhoods for 29 years, said people in this area dispose of bodies in the desert, in burn pits, buried in remote locations where they will not be found unless you know where to look. He said the Sonoran Desert is vast, and searching it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Experts have assessed that Nancy's body is likely within 2 to 5 miles of her home, based on historical abduction data.
That's interesting. I've never heard anyone say that, but it also wouldn't surprise me. Generally, they can be found close, but in this case, if that's as far away as they are, if you really think it's only 2 to 5 miles away, why aren't they covering every inch of that 2 to 5 miles? Why aren't they letting the Cajun Navy do it? Or Maureen and Brian Etten do it, as Maureen said? Why not? What do you have to lose by doing that? I think in this case, it's probably further away than that. But you have nothing to lose but to try to do this, right? Why not let them do it?
Now let me lay out the theories, not the internet theories, not the Reddit threads, the evidence-based explanations for what happened to Nancy Guthrie, what supports each one, and where each one breaks down. The first theory is the one the evidence keeps circling back to, the insider. Tommaso Cioni is the last person to see Nancy alive. He drove her home. He said goodnight at the garage. He drove 4 miles back to the house he shares with Annie. No independently verified alibi exists for the hours between 10 p.m. and 1:47 a.m. Annie was in the same house. Whatever alibi one provides, the other confirms. He has 20 years of insider knowledge. The cameras, not just where they are, but that they do not record. He would have seen Nancy interact with the Nest system hundreds of times. He would know she never paid for the subscription. The gate. He was at it 4 hours before it was passed through without force. The hearing aids. He knew she took them out at night. He knew that after 10 p.m., she could hear nothing. The medication. He knew the schedule. He knew the evening dose was due minutes after he dropped her off. The layout. 20 years of Friday dinners means he could navigate every room in the dark without touching a wall. He teaches AP biology, college-level genetics, molecular biology, forensic science concepts. His students learn PCR amplification and gel electrophoresis, the same techniques used to process crime scene DNA. He handles nitrile gloves every working day. He knows how DNA transfers, how it degrades, and how it gets collected. He knows that nitrile gloves are not perfect. Micro tears form during physical exertion. Sweat builds inside within minutes. A biology teacher would know to dispose of gloves immediately after, not at the scene, miles away. Now look at the gear the suspect wore. The internet has spent 6 weeks debating whether the cheap backpack and the wrong holster mean the suspect is an amateur. I am not going to rehash that argument. What I want you to think about instead is what the gear tells us about who purchased it. The Ozark Trail backpack is exclusive to Walmart. It has a SKU number. That SKU has purchase records. If someone bought it with a card, or if someone's phone was inside a Walmart in the Tucson area in January, that transaction is sitting in a database. The gear is not just a costume, it is a receipt.
And again, it might not just be Walmart. It can be a thrift store, resold on Amazon, Goodwill, could be anything, right? So it's not as easy as just finding it from Walmart.
And the FBI has had 6 weeks to pull it. The timing matters. Nancy was taken on the exact weekend Savannah was scheduled to travel internationally for NBC's coverage of the Winter Olympics. Olympic assignments are locked months in advance.
And while you're here, please remember to leave your DNA on that like button. Likes are free, tax-free. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I go live around 10 p.m. Eastern almost every night, 5 or 6 nights a week to talk about true crime and current events. And come say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat. Got a great group of people here.
If you wanted to target Nancy during a window when her most powerful family member would be on the other side of the planet, distracted, unreachable, unable to mobilize a response for hours, you would pick that weekend. A stranger does not know Savannah's Olympic schedule. Someone at the family dinner table does. In May 2025, 8 months before the kidnapping, Tommaso signed a durable power of attorney, giving Annie control of his financial and property affairs. Former News Nation journalist Ashley Banfield reported that a law enforcement source with direct knowledge of the investigation told her Tommaso could be the prime suspect. The sheriff denied it publicly, but the FBI returned to Tommaso and Annie's home more than 5 times. They removed items in brown paper bags.
And that is something that definitely happened, right? We were there for it. We saw the people with the gloves on. They were taking pictures inside of Annie's house. Remember, Brian Etman was reporting this. So was everyone. What was it for? What were they looking for? Did they find what they were looking for? We never heard a word. And that's just one of the things that makes me think we just don't have all the information. FBI, local law enforcement, they're not telling us everything. So we don't know a word about what they found there that day or why they even went there and why they went there multiple times. We have no idea.
They searched the septic tank. They took the car apart. For weeks, Tommaso said nothing publicly. Every other family member spoke. He was invisible. Then, on March 2nd, he walked to the memorial, and the internet compared his walk to the man on the porch, his height beside Savannah, who is 5'10". In every frame, he was not above her. He was beside her. His exact height has never been publicly confirmed. The detail that was supposed to clear him may not clear him. The second theory extends from the first.
So this is slick here, right? This is this guy framing it in a way to make this image look like this image. But I don't think it's Tommaso, despite what he's doing here. I don't think that's him. That's just my opinion.
The bandmate, Dominic Evans, 5'9", average build, mustache and goatee matching the FBI description, a marking on his right wrist, consistent with what Clemente observed in the porch footage. Felony convictions in Pima County, burglary, robbery, theft, embezzlement. 19 years in a band with Tommaso. They met through a classified ad and built a relationship through thousands of hours of shared rehearsal, recording, and performance. If Tommaso is the architect, the man who provided the blueprint, Evans is the profile that fits the operative, the man on the porch, the person with the criminal experience to enter a home and confront an elderly woman. The FBI's physical description matches him. His criminal record demonstrates capability. His 19-year relationship with Tommaso provides the trust. The architect-operative structure works like this. One person provides intelligence, the layout, the cameras, the schedule, the vulnerabilities. That person never appears at the scene. His value is information. He stays home. He produces an alibi by not being anywhere suspicious. The second person provides capability, the willingness to walk through.
And again, we already saw that tattoo, right? That's what this guy should have went over. If you want to go cross-examine something, cross-examine that tattoo that we went over on the Nancy Grace show, right? With that other dude, cross-examine that. Does Tommaso or Dominic here have that tattoo? No. Does Annie? No. So it just means to me it wasn't them on the front porch. Doesn't rule them out necessarily from hiring someone, but to me, they weren't on the front porch.
A door at 1:47 a.m. and the experience to manage an operation under pressure. He acts on a briefing received days or weeks before. He walks through a door armed with knowledge he could not have gathered on his own. Which cameras record, which do not? Which gate was left unlocked? Which rooms contain what? Which medications sit on which counter? Two people divides every task. One handles Nancy. One manages the environment. One guides her through the hallway. One watches the street. One carries her to the vehicle. One drives. The operational load that makes 41 minutes dangerous for a single person.
The name of this channel is Crime Unresolved. A couple of weeks ago, we went over 2 different videos from this channel. Not this one. This video just got uploaded yesterday. But those other 2, one of those videos almost has 1 million views. The other one has 200 to 300,000. And when a video is getting that much traction, to me, it's important to go over it.
Comes methodical for 2. Evans told the New York Times he met Nancy once in 2011. He said investigators spoke with him for 40 minutes and never contacted him again. The sheriff did not clear Evans. He cleared the family. Evans is not family. He is a bandmate the sheriff never publicly addressed. O'Connell observed that the suspect on the porch appeared completely relaxed. No micro expressions, no stress indicators. She said he looked like he had smoked something to calm his nerves. If the man on the porch was being paid to execute someone else's plan, that relaxation makes sense. The anxiety of planning was not his. The planning belonged to someone 4 miles away. The third theory focuses on the person between the architect and the target. Annie Guthrie is Nancy's eldest daughter. She was at the dinner on January 31st. There are conflicting reports about whether she or Tommaso drove Nancy home. Some sources say Tommaso, some say Annie. The sheriff confirmed Tommaso, but other accounts differ. She lives in the same house as Tommaso. She provides his alibi. Her car has been in police custody for 40 days, being reassembled after an exhaustive search. Her home was searched multiple times, including a late-night execution where officers spent hours photographing rooms and removing suitcases. Cameras were taken from her property. The septic tank was examined. Annie is the bridge between Tommaso and Nancy. Every piece of insider knowledge Tommaso has about Nancy's life, the cameras, the medication, the hearing aids, the gate, the routine, the fact that nobody would check on her until noon the next day, came through Annie's relationship with her mother. Annie knew the house. Annie knew the schedule. And Annie knew that on the night of January 31st, her mother would walk into a silent house, take her hearing aids out, and not be checked on for 14 hours. She signed the power of attorney alongside Tommaso in May 2025. In Savannah's 2024 memoir, she describes a childhood game she and Annie played with their cousin, mock kidnapping. Waking up in the middle of the night, being driven from Tucson to Phoenix, calling Nancy from a payphone, a template that existed in the family's history, published in a best-selling book. Coffindaffer noted that all searches of Annie and Tommaso's property have been consent-based, no probable cause warrants. She says this means investigators do not have enough to suspect them, but she also raised the possibility that Nancy was tracked from Annie's house, that a device was placed on the vehicle, that someone was waiting for Nancy to arrive home because they knew exactly when she would be dropped off and exactly how vulnerable she would be when she got there. The fourth theory points outward, not family, but not a stranger. Two retired FBI agents, Jim Clemente and Maureen
So, Christy, the big question would be when? I did not hear Tommaso Googled that, but when did he Google it and where did you hear it? Because if it was afterwards, yes, I think a lot of people would want to know how long an 84-year-old woman could survive without their medicines. If you did it before the fact, that would be a little more something, but where did you hear it?
O'Connell said on Brian Enton's podcast that elder abuse should absolutely be considered. Clemente said every person with even a tangential relationship to Nancy should be investigated. Pool cleaners, landscapers, repair workers, delivery drivers, Uber drivers, anyone who had been inside that house and could have learned she was elderly, alone, and vulnerable. Forensic analyst Joseph Scott Morgan went further. He said the cases he has worked involving elder abuse follow a pattern. People who target the elderly because they know they have money. He said Nancy was a much more valuable target if the suspect had foreknowledge of whose mother she was. And in Tucson, that does not take a deep dive to find out. Nancy relied on Uber at night. Every ride was a stranger who learned her address, her age, her routine, and that she walked into a dark house, alone. O'Connell described elderly people as sometimes too trusting. Her own neighbor, the same age as Nancy, would let a complete stranger inside to use the restroom. But this theory has limits. 41 minutes inside the house is not someone with professional access. It is someone with
And again, I say this every time they say that, 41 minutes, we do not know how long they were in the house. Nest cam being disconnected, pacemaker being disconnected, does not mean definitely in the house for that same amount of time. Maybe it's only 10 minutes. Maybe it's 20 minutes. But those two times, they don't tell you how long they were in the house. They do not say that.
personal familiarity. The camera tap, that rhythmic, casual gesture, is not a pool cleaner who visited a few times. It is someone who has been on that porch hundreds of times. And the $6 million ransom demand requires knowledge of Savannah's finances that a landscaper would not have. The fifth theory is the simplest, and it comes from the man who knows these streets better than anyone. Eric Maldonado, 29 years with the Pima County Sheriff's Office, believes what happened to Nancy was a burglary that went wrong. Someone targeted her home. They knew.
Nope. Do not. This is my least favorite theory of all. Burglary gone wrong? Not at all. Especially if the Nest Cam footage was from multiple days. As someone else said before, you go during the day, it's because you want things. You go at nighttime, it's because you want the person. I think that's accurate.
Knew she was elderly and would be asleep. They came at night because the neighborhood is too.
So that's the question for you all, chat. Press 1 if you think it was a burglary. Press 2 if you think no, it was certainly not a burglary gone wrong. Nancy was the target. So press 1 if you think it was a burglary. 2, no, Nancy was the target.
Tight during the day. Something went wrong. Nancy woke up. A confrontation happened. Blood on the porch. And the priorities shifted. Maldonado's point about the body is the one that has stayed with me. He said Nancy is the crime scene. Her body carries the suspect's DNA under her fingernails, on her clothing, on her skin. Every criminal in America knows that DNA is what connects you to the crime. You cannot leave the evidence behind, so you take her into the desert, and you never tell anyone where. The medication was not left behind strategically. It was left behind because once the confrontation happened, the plan changed. There was no plan to keep her alive. There was only a plan to not get caught. But this theory has the biggest holes of any. The 3-week surveillance campaign, January 11th, January 23rd, the pre-execution porch visit, is not how burglars operate. The de-authentication device targeting specific cameras on specific sides of specific houses is beyond anything Maldonado encountered in 29 years of burglary investigations. The 41 minutes is not a burglary timeline, and the ransom demands, even if they were sent by opportunists.
So it looks like the chat, this is rare, unanimously thinks not a burglary attempt. Nancy was the target, to which I agree.
Arrived too quickly and with too much specific information to be entirely disconnected from the operation. 5 theories, each built on documented evidence, each with holes. But here is what connects the first 3 and separates them from the last 2. The insider theories, Tommaso, Evans, Annie, all explain the 4 hours. They explain why the medication was untouched. They explain why the cameras were not recording. They explain why the gate was not forced. They explain why nobody checked on Nancy for 14 hours. They explain how the suspect navigated the house in the dark. They explain the ownership behavior on the porch. They explain the de-authentication device, because someone who has been in the neighborhood for 20 years knows where every camera points. And they explain why, 40 days later, a blue Honda CR-V is still sitting in a mechanic's shop being reassembled, while the sheriff tells the public the family has been cleared. The outsider theories, elder abuse, burglary, explain some of this, but they cannot explain all of it. A pool cleaner does not tap a camera twice with rhythmic familiarity. A burglar does not rehearse for 3 weeks. A stranger does not know that the Nest subscription was inactive.
That part's true with the stranger. Lisa Mitchell gifted a Radical Self-Respect membership, which is awesome. Love this. And how this works is YouTube gives these out for people that are active on the channel. So thank you very much for this, Lisa Mitchell. This will give someone access to the members-only live chats, or live streams, I should call them.
And nobody outside the family would know that the evening medication was due at 10 p.m., and that missing it would begin a countdown that could not be reversed. And then there is the investigation itself, because if the evidence has been slow to produce an arrest, the handling of that evidence is part of the reason. The crime scene was released in under 20 hours. After it was released, a pool cleaning company, Ambiance Pool Service, which had never serviced the address.
And that is insane. The crime scene was released in less than 20 hours. Is that really how short it was? If so, that's insane. That's like negligent.
Address before, was escorted into the backyard by a deputy. A landscaper brought tools onto the property. Pizza was delivered. A home health attendant visited. Reporters walked up and photographed blood still visible on the porch. Forensic investigator Joe Scott Morgan documented the contamination and said he saw no gatekeeper. He said the DNA they are counting on to break this case could belong to the pool guy. The FBI had to return to the property because a roof-mounted camera was missed on the first sweep. They brought in Google engineers to attempt data recovery. The biological evidence from inside the house was sent to a private lab in Florida, not to the FBI's facility at Quantico, which maintains rapid processing, specifically for kidnapping cases. The sheriff told NBC processing could take weeks, months, or up to a year. The glove DNA that everyone hoped would identify the suspect was traced to a restaurant employee with no connection to the case. One profile down, one remaining. The sheriff told...
So that restaurant worker, they must have had a local record or something along those lines, fingerprints, because how else would they know them? Did they really go through one of those ancestry type sites? It wouldn't have been the top 3 though. Couldn't have been 23andMe. Couldn't have been Ancestry.com. So I imagine it was, no, they just had their fingerprints from a local arrest. That's probably how they found the person in the restaurant. Or else, how would they know? How would they know that glove belonged to that person?
Fox News, a glove was never found inside Nancy's home. The FBI told News Nation it was. He told the press, everybody is still a suspect. Then he told the press the family is cleared, and suggesting otherwise is cruel. He gave separate interviews to different outlets, producing different versions of the same fact.
And that's a jerk thing to say too by their Sheriff Nanos. I mean, to say something like that, and if you missed it, he said anyone who thinks someone part of the family or close to the family is a suspect, that is cruel to say. It's like, well, guess what, dude? You know this. In crimes like this, family's the first one you look at as a suspect. That's just facts. That's just reality. I mean, you're going to tell people they're being cruel for trying to learn from the past? Like, that's obnoxious.
The pacemaker Bluetooth sniffer, technology that could detect Nancy's signal from a helicopter, was disclosed in the press before the search was complete. Whoever took Nancy learned from the...
But I will say this. Yes, it's usually the family or someone close. It's like when a spouse is killed. Usually you think the other spouse is the first suspect. Now, it's not crazy to think that. Now, it would be a little out of line perhaps to scream from the rooftops, yes, this person's definitely guilty, when you don't know. But to think it, there's nothing wrong with thinking it. There's nothing wrong with speculating. But like trying to say, yes, definitely guilty, no, that's going too far.
News that investigators had a way to track her pacemaker. The signal has not been detected since. The Madres Buscadoras, a volunteer organization with more than 5,000 desert recoveries on their record, traveled to Arizona to search. They were turned away. Behind all of it is a grudge. In 2015, the FBI investigated the Sheriff's Department for misuse of civil asset forfeiture funds. Chief Deputy Radke was indicted. He died by suicide. Nanos went on television and called the FBI's investigation garbage. Former Chief Deputy Castigar told the Daily Mail that Nanos holds great disdain for the FBI. 98% of his own deputies voted no confidence in his leadership before Nancy ever went missing. The investigation has been narrowing.
Now, we remember former Undersheriff Castigar said that to Brian Hinton. Oh, no, not him. Union Leader Cross said that to Brian Hinton in that anonymous confidence vote. Everyone but one person didn't have confidence in Sheriff Nanos. That's insane. That's a lot.
Despite the leadership, not because of it. The detectives and FBI agents doing the work deserve to be separated from this conversation. They are building a case under circumstances their own leadership has made harder. The investigation is narrowing. A dedicated task force, 4 detectives and a sergeant, is working full-time out of the FBI's Tucson office. The 400-person surge is over. What remains is focused, quiet, and specific. Clemente said on Enton's podcast that the offender has probably already been talked to earlier in the investigation. They just did not have enough to move. Good detective work, he said, is rehashing everything until you get the right answers. Tips have tapered. The FBI confirmed it publicly, but the evidence pipeline has not stopped. The DNA from inside the house is still processing. Genetic genealogy, the technology that identified the Golden State Killer after 4 decades and connected Brian Kohberger to the Idaho murders within weeks, does not require the suspect to be in CODIS. It requires one distant relative in a public database, one partial match, one family tree, one branch that leads to a name. 2 DNA profiles means 2 chances. Even though the glove was traced to a restaurant employee, the mixed sample from inside the house remains, and the probability that whoever left their biology inside Nancy's home has 0 family members in any genealogy database shrinks with every sample uploaded worldwide. The router logs from Nancy's home may contain probe requests, digital fingerprints from a phone that was within range of her network on the night of February 1st. Smartphones broadcast these constantly. If the suspect's Wi-Fi was enabled, Nancy's router may have captured the name of the network their phone was searching for, a network that could identify where the suspect lives, who their internet provider is, or what their home network is named. That data is in FBI hands. Unlike DNA, it can be analyzed in hours. The signal footprint is being mapped.
I got a super chat here. Carrie, thank you so much for this. The way Annie was sobbing so IPUD at the family vigil was so performative. Savannah knows what happened. What do you think? Which one? At the family vigil? I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know if Savannah knows what happened either. I don't think Savannah does. I think the whole thing is geared towards punishing Savannah, or revenge against Savannah. As far as Annie, I mean, I don't know. I know what you're talking about with her and Tommaso and Savannah, but I would think Savannah would be more skeptical of them if she thought it was them, is what I think. But I didn't necessarily get that from that. But thank you very much for the super chat, Carrie. I appreciate you. And likes are free, by the way. Tax free. Leave your DNA in that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And come say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here. Very eccentric group, but I would have it no other way.
Which cameras went dark, which stayed on, what time, what direction. That map will show where the deauthentication device was positioned when it was activated. That position narrows the suspect's location to a specific point on a specific street at a specific time. Cell tower data has been captured from multiple dates. February 1st, January 23rd, possibly January 11th. The FBI is looking for the phone that appears in the area on more than one date. If that phone belongs to anyone connected to any theory in this video, this case is over. Experts have assessed that Nancy likely died within 72 hours of being taken, without her medication, without her pacemaker being monitored, without her hearing aids. She was 84 years old, and she was taken from her bed in the middle of the night by someone who left her pills on the counter. This is a recovery case now. The family knows that. Savannah said they have accepted the possibility that Nancy may already be gone, but they need to know where she is. $1 million. Cash. Anonymous tips accepted. That number exists for one reason: to fracture whatever agreement is keeping the people who did this silent. In a two-person operation, the first person who speaks receives the cooperation agreement. The second person receives the full weight of the prosecution. Both have to hold. Both have to trust that the other will not break first. And $1 million in cash makes that trust the most fragile thing in Arizona. The architect knows the operative.
By the way, Christy, LFG stands for Let's Effin' Go.
Can end him with one phone call. The operative knows the architect will deny everything and let him take the fall alone. Neither trusts the other completely, because whatever bond held them together, 19 years of shared stages, shared music, shared silence, was built for rehearsals and recordings. It was not built for this. And the weight of what happened at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st is heavier than anything they have ever carried. Someone in Tucson knows which of these 5 theories is the right one. A neighbor who saw something, a friend who heard something, a person in Tommaso's circle who noticed something that did not make sense, a late-night conversation, a purchase, a change in behavior in the weeks before February 1st. That person is watching this right now. The 4 hours between 9:50 p.m. and 1:47 a.m. are where this case lives. The medication that was not taken, the hearing aids that were removed, the camera that was not recording, the garage door that closed with only one witness, and 14 hours of silence before anyone thought to check. One of these 5 theories explains all of it. The other 4 do not. And the evidence, sitting in labs, stored on servers, captured on cameras, sealed inside a blue Honda CR-V that is still being put back together 40 days later, is not going anywhere. It is waiting. And the person who did this is running out of time to decide whether they speak first or the evidence speaks for them. Subscribe, turn on notifications, drop a comment.
All right. So that's the end of that. So the 4 hours there, I mean, technically there's a possibility that she never came home. I think there's a possibility of that. Or there's a possibility something happened just in that time anyway. Just because the Nest Cam was disconnected at that time doesn't mean something didn't happen before that. I don't think we can forget that point. So I want to see the the Tommaso thing. This.
Just filming the road. I'll leave. Huh?
Tommaso. This is Jay for Justice here. He was filming the road, and apparently Tommaso called the police on him. To which I don't blame him, by the way. Yeah, Mavs, I agree. That's certainly a possibility.
I will. That was Tommaso. Holy shit. That's the first time I've seen Tommaso and talk.
Yeah, that was it, though.
This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
This is Tony Bruschi, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Make sure you check out his channel. Support his work. Subscribe to his channel. Make sure you like this video while you're here, by the way. Likes are free, tax-free. Leave your DNA on that like button. And subscribe to my channel if you're not already.
The cadaver dogs went home. It's not a rumor. It's not a leak from a disgruntled deputy. That's an official statement from the Pima County Sheriff's Department that the dogs used in the search for Nancy Guthrie are no longer actively deployed in this case. They are, in the words of the department, available if needed in the future. That's the kind of language you use when you've run out of places to send them. When the ground has been covered, when the scent trails have gone cold in every direction, you knew to look. Most people heard that and moved on to the next update. I want to stay here for a minute because that single operational decision tells you more about where this investigation actually stands than anything Sheriff Chris Nanos has said.
So the title of this video is Why They May Never Find Her. Quite the grim title, but let's see what Tony has to say about it.
Into a microphone in 6 weeks. Cadaver dogs are not a public relations tool. You don't stand them down because the cameras need a new angle. You stand them down because the people running this investigation have made a quiet, professional judgment that the dogs have done what dogs can do. And it wasn't enough. It's not defeatism from the outside. That's the first piece of a genuine honesty that this case has produced in more than 40 days. So let's be honest with each other about what we're actually looking at here. Okay? And that, look, hold out hope all you like. I would like nothing more for her to be found alive, but let's be honest. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She has a cardiac condition that requires daily medication. Her mobility is severely limited. She can't walk 50 yards on her own. Her pacemaker last synced to her iPhone at approximately 2 a.m. on February 1st. Her phone was left at the house. She was not. That pacemaker data is the tightest biological clock in the case. And what it tells us is that somewhere between 2 a.m. and the time her family realized she was gone, an 84-year-old woman with a heart condition and almost no physical capacity to resist was taken from her home more than 40 days ago without her medication. You don't need me to do the math on what that means medically. The facts carry their own weight. What I will say is this. She was not a woman who could be held somewhere indefinitely and quietly maintained. The biology of this situation has its own timeline, and that timeline has long since passed the point where the outcome has only one realistic shape, and nobody wants to say that, so I'm saying it. Now let's talk about what the evidence has actually given investigators, because the honest answer is,
I mean, what he's referring to is the fact that there's such a low likelihood that Nancy is still alive. That's the thing. And then whether they find her, I mean, what finding her does is it gives Savannah Guthrie closure and the rest of the family closure. That's what it does. But even still, when they haven't found her, there's that open-ended feeling where you just don't know. And granted, I'm not sure at what point mentally you say to yourself, well, we got to just act as if she's gone. That's a tough one, right? Who can tell? Who can say that for someone else, right? But they're probably getting to that point if they haven't been already, unfortunately.
Not much. A glove was found 2 miles from Nancy's home. It contained DNA. The DNA was processed, run through CODIS, and came back clean. No match in the national database, so investigators pushed harder. They sent it to a private lab in Florida for genetic genealogy testing, the same technology that cracked the Golden State Killer. After 30 years, weeks later, the results came back. The DNA belonged to a restaurant worker in the area with no connection to the case whatsoever. The glove was completely irrelevant, as suspected. We've been saying that from the day they started talking about that glove. We were right. There are other gloves still being tested, but the early returns on the physical evidence have been exactly that, returns with nothing in them. The mixed DNA found at the scene is a separate problem. Nanos confirmed it himself. The sample contains genetic material from multiple contributors, which makes extracting a clean, usable profile a little more difficult. They've submitted portions of it to the FBI's national database. No hits. Genetic genealogy on a mixed sample is not impossible, but it's a slow, resource-intensive work that takes months under ideal conditions. The sample may not be ideal. The suspect on the doorbell footage is masked, gloved, backpack on, and carrying what appears to be an antenna-like device in his front pocket, something that has now prompted investigators to go door to door in Nancy's neighborhood 6 weeks after the fact, asking residents whether they noticed any disruption to their internet service on the night she disappeared. A damaged utility box.
I didn't know they were doing that. 6 weeks later, local law enforcement is going door to door asking if they've had experienced internet disruptions. Interesting. I thought it was more of a dead zone, but it's interesting they're doing that.
Sits around the corner from her home and is being reviewed as part of the investigation. But again, we don't know anything about the box. It might have absolutely nothing to do with any of this. It could just be an old, damaged box. Walk around your neighborhood and seriously look at all the utility boxes, because this is identified simply as a utility box. Don't assign it as the internet box, because we don't know that. Nobody does. It's a damaged box. You will find one if you walk around for more than an hour in any neighborhood in the United States. Damaged. One neighbor told reporters his Ring camera history from the night is simply not available. Others confirmed the FBI specifically asked about connectivity glitches, whether that device was a signal jammer or a protein bar. Nobody has confirmed. But investigators are treating the question seriously enough to still be chasing it in week 6. It tells you something, that they don't have a lot to go on. They also can identify the car. The vehicle was captured on a Ring camera approximately 2.5 miles from Nancy's home at 2:36 in the morning on February 1st. Authorities are aware of it. They're also, in the sheriff's own words, looking at it alongside hundreds of thousands of other vehicles that were on the road that night.
Yes, by the way, please remember to like the video. Likes are free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Coming up on 40,000, which is pretty cool. What else? I go live almost every night at around 10 p.m. Eastern to talk about true crime and current events. And I use my experience being on the autistic spectrum with mental health and addiction, narcissistic abuse, and narcissistic family systems. And I give my unique insights on true crime and current events. And thank you very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, subscribing, sending super chats, super stickers, becoming a member, gifting memberships, all very, very appreciated.
That's not exactly an investigation closing in on a break. This is an investigation describing the size of its town and basically describing it as its own haystack. And there's a needle somewhere in it. 6 weeks in, they still cannot identify the clothing the masked suspect was wearing. With the full resources of the FBI, thousands of hours of video review, tens of thousands of tips, and the most scrutinized doorbell footage in the country, they can't tell you where the jacket came from still. I'm not saying this is a fault to them. I'm just telling you where it's at. And here's where I want to reframe something, because I think we've been looking at this case through the wrong lens from the beginning. At least a lot of folks out there have. I feel like we've been pretty on track here. Every year in the United States, roughly 600,000 people are reported missing. 600,000. I know it's a big number. Most of them come home fast, voluntarily returned, located by police, a misunderstanding resolved in hours.
I feel like most missing people or most missing children, at least, are taken by the other parent. I think that's the vast majority.
But approximately 87% of missing persons cases close within the first 30 days, which means the 13% that don't close in that window enter a completely different statistical universe, a universe where a different resolution exists, different rate exists, a different trajectory, a different ending. Nancy Guthrie crossed that threshold a couple weeks ago. The FBI reported over 97,000 unresolved missing person cases in a single year. 97,000 people. And here's the thing about those 97,000.
Allison has just become a member. Thank you very much for becoming a member, Allison. Greatly appreciated. Now you'll have access to our members-only live streams.
They don't have a daughter anchoring a national morning show. They don't have a $1 million reward attached to their name. And they don't have hundreds of federal agents, drones, aerial resources, a national tip line, and wall-to-wall cable coverage. They have a case number and a family that checks the database and tries not to lose hope. They just disappeared, and most of them stay disappeared. Right now, over 25,500 missing person cases are sitting open in the NAM U.S. database, the Department of Justice's own national system for tracking people who haven't been found. Nancy Guthrie is one of those cases now. Whatever her daughter's name is, whatever the reward amount is, whatever Nano says into the next microphone. And I want to be precise about why that matters. Not cruel, precise. Because in 2024, across the entire United States, only 293 missing person entries were coded as abduction by a stranger out of 533,000 total entries. True stranger abductions, where the perpetrator has no prior relationship with the victim, are among the rarest and hardest cases in law enforcement. Not because investigators don't work them hard, because the thing that breaks most cases is connection, shared history, a phone call between the victim and the person who killed them, a financial transaction, a mutual contact investigators can squeeze. And a genuine stranger abduction, that thread doesn't exist. There's no ex-husband with a motive. There's no business partner with a grudge. There's a masked man with gloves and a possible signal jammer or a protein bar who walked into a woman's life for reasons nobody has been able to establish and walked back out, leaving almost nothing behind. The machinery deployed on Nancy's behalf, the full weight of it, the task force, the forensic labs, the reward money, the public pressure, Savannah's face on every screen in the country, has run at capacity for more than 40 days and hit the same wall that buries nearly 100,000 cases a year in silence. High profile doesn't mean high probability of resolution. It means more cameras pointed at the same dead ends. Now let's add to the geography. The Sonoran Desert is not a neutral backdrop. It's one of the most hostile environments on Earth for the preservation of evidence. Arizona's heat alone accelerates biological decomposition at a rate that makes forensic recovery exponentially harder with each passing week. The terrain, areas, desert scrub, mountain ranges, thousands of square miles of emptiness. It's not something you canvass with dogs and drones and call complete. The wildlife does what desert wildlife does. Evidence disappears. The desert keeps it. And then there's the proximity to the border. The Tucson area sits within a few hours of one of the most active smuggling corridors in North America. I'm not suggesting a cartel connection.
Let's see. I don't suggest a cartel connection either. Zully, I don't think I've ever seen you before. Maybe I have, but thank you so much for the super chat here. This is greatly appreciated. Love all the support I've been getting. Please remember to like the video, everyone else, while you're here. Likes are free, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And again, thank you so much, Zully. I appreciate you.
Not suggesting anything beyond what geography provides as a factual reality. If someone wanted to move a person or dispose of evidence in a location from which it would never be recovered, the infrastructure and the terrain to do exactly that exists within driving distance of Nancy Guthrie's front door. Investigators know this. They would be negligent not to factor it in, and the public hasn't fully reckoned with what that means for the realistic odds of physical recovery, regardless of how the investigation ultimately resolves. Approximately 4,400 unidentified human remains are recovered in this country every year. Roughly 1,000 of them are still unidentified after 12 months. Those are the ones they find. The desert doesn't always offer that much. So here's where we are. The family left flowers outside the house on March 2nd. The card said, "Their love burns bright." Savannah went to Rockefeller Center last week and hugged her colleagues and told them she intends to come back to the show someday when the time is right. $1 million sits on collective, Sheriff Nanos told NBC News. Investigators are definitely closer, and the cadaver dogs are home. Maybe Nanos is right. Maybe there's a break coming, a DNA hit, a tip that cracks open, a surveillance frame that finally yields a plate number. Investigations have broken later than this unless. I'm not here to say it is impossible. I'm here to say that the evidence, not the coverage, not the reward, not the pressure, not the prayers, the evidence is quietly telling a very different story. And the statistics on what happens to cases like this in terrain like this at 40 days with no suspect and 2 DNA dead ends are not ambiguous. 600,000 people go missing in America every year, most.
And again, multiple things can be true here at the same time. One, we're almost certainly not getting all the information. That's normal. That's a common thing. We're not entitled to the information, right? That's true. But that also being said, just looking at their actions, I don't think they're close to solving this at all. I mean, what I had hoped for was maybe the DNA in the house, but it doesn't seem like that's a good sample. And we haven't had the sheath. That's what helped in the Koberger case. They found that sheath. It connected to his dad's DNA, and that's how they found him. We haven't had that kind of break in this case yet. So I just don't know what they're hanging their hat on at this point. The rewards haven't worked. It doesn't look like the people who have done this have blundered very badly at all. They've gotten away with it going on 42 days now. So to me, it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
Come home, some don't. And the desert, it turns out, doesn't much care whose mother you are.
And that is also true. Improve yourself. I always love saying your name. Some YouTube channels are saying the handyman did it, and that is why Nanos is saying others are at risk. Nancy Guthrie's handyman? Like one of the people that were working on the pool, or somebody else? A different kind of handyman. I imagine someone else, right? I kind of think what someone said the other day was Nanos was just saying that in general, that, hey, make sure you have your loved ones safe, the elderly safe. Make sure they have a home security system. Make sure their Nest Cam and Ring Cams have subscriptions. Make sure they have a life alert system. Even a freaking life alert system would have really helped in this case, right? I mean, would the person know to look for that thing? Maybe not. Maybe not. But thank you very much for this. Improve yourself. Your support is always appreciated. Thank you again.
Your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube and Substack. I know it's a downer, but if you come here for anything, you know you're coming here to get the truth. You know you're coming here to get honesty. You're coming here to get opinions that are based in reality. And this is where reality sits right now in this case. Your thoughts in the comments. We'll continue the conversation there. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you get podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, whatever it is.
Someone had said Nancy had a dog that died in December. I haven't heard much talk about it, but it was before this. That's what someone said. So others have said there was another dog that was really just Savannah's dog. So either way, I don't think there was a dog the night of.
Find us, search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi, and we will be there. And we'll continue that conversation there.
So, do you want to watch another Tony Bruschi video or on to Jennifer Coffindoffer? And I can understand why you say that, D. Actually, there's two D's now. D Sandback. And then DD Free. And then Deej. Oh, goodness gracious. It's getting tough. Got one vote for Jen, one vote for TB. Hello there, Corey. Welcome. Looks like Jen's going to win here.
True crimers, welcome to Break the Case. I'm your host. I'm Jen Coffindoffer. Thank you so much for being with us this Sunday morning. We're going to be discussing Nancy Guthrie. There's some important points. I know even at a quiet time in an investigation, there's still a...
That's right, Kat. There's only one Jared, and Jared's one of a kind. But there's also many black sheeps here also, who are also one of a kind.
A lot going on behind the scenes. Obviously, Nancy was reported missing on the 1st of February. So now we are on day 43. We are well into this investigation. Remember, Brian Kohberger was arrested on day 47, and that
Kohberger was arrested on 47. That's a good thing to remember. And make sure you support Jen Coffindoffer's channel, Breaking the Case with Jen Coffindoffer. Subscribe to her. Make sure you like this video while you're here. Likes are free. Likes are for my shadow, or my spirit animal, Shadow the Night Owl, and Swift the Fox. Swift the Fox is from David Denome, for you millennials out there. Grand old Nickelodeon show. I guess that was early 90s, late 80s to early 90s. My other favorite was Batman. But looking back in Batman, the Joker was domestically abusing Harley Quinn in that cartoon. And I think to myself, they would never play that today. But that's the early 90s for you. And thank you very much for all the support I've been getting here. I go live almost every night at about 10 p.m. Eastern to talk about true crime and current events.
That investigation had about 60 FBI agents, almost a huge department with the ISP, the Idaho State Police, and then also Moscow and local departments working on that case. In this case, we know at least initially there were 100 FBI agents. Now there's a task force that have been, it's a task force working in Phoenix. And I wanted to reiterate that likely this task force was already established in terms of the Violent Crimes Task Force, and that they particularly are focused on this crime. It's hard to put task forces together. There's a lot of memorandums of understanding that you have to write, that you have to get into specific parameters and get everybody to approve. So I would believe that this task force is already well established, works on violent crime, a lot of great knowledge and sophistication from the FBI angle there. And of course, we know Pima County has, I believe, 4 to 5 deputies there, or detectives and deputies that are working with the task force, along with all the other entities that would be working there in the local arena as well as the federal arena. These task forces usually really have the best of the best personnel, and I'm glad that we saw that relocation, and all the analysts that I know are also working on it, are looking through all that video that exists. But I want to talk about a couple of important things. One thing I've just been remiss not to bring up. I've been to talk about it, and I just haven't. I've just been forgetful, I guess, and forgot to bring this up. And that's the El Charro restaurant. We saw, and I posted this both on YouTube, snip from that, as well as on Twitter. Just about this wonderful footage, wonderful, yet I think, ended up being an issue, right? Basically, NBC and the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie, and with all the other hosts as well, they really love to get into your living room. And how does that happen? Well, these morning shows get into your living room because they let you in theirs. They want you to feel that personal connection. I've been posting every night videos just regarding Savannah, and everything from her unloading her purse to talking about the death of her father, how difficult that grief process was for her, and then talking with others who have lost their fathers, and also just a lot of the personal videos that were featured with her and her mom, and videos that she has featured with her and her sister when they were little, growing up in that house, which it's always kind of eerie when you see the photos of the house, because it hasn't changed much. I mean, it's really hasn't, even down to the foliage that at least appears to be very similar to.
So I missed what you said. What is the significance of this El Charro restaurant?
What porch got pulled that day, the day of her abduction. So it's almost like it's entranced in time. Anyway, I think all of that footage is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think that's part of the reason that not only our country, but other countries are very interested in finding Nancy Guthrie, because she's a grandma. She's 84 years old. She got snatched from her bed. It's terrible. And I think so many people can relate to that. And people that I've talked to who are in their 70s and 80s, they just can't believe it. And I think it's put a new sort of, I don't know, more awareness on a lot of people. And when you look back at all these videos and imagery and everything, geez, I'm just going to put it out there. It would be so easy to be able to snatch her, and to really have a huge insight into their lives and how they lived and their layout. I mean, there's a lot of pictures that are out there that remain out there. And, now it's too late, sort of the horse done left the barn. It doesn't help to take them down at this point, but they're up there. And I keep wondering if some of the footage from some of the other anchors and everything, if they will pull that at all. They certainly need to be on alert, especially after Sheriff Nano said, listen, this guy could strike again. Don't think just the Guthries. And I just think it was so funny that I posted that about that. Why isn't anybody talking about the fact that this maniac is still out there? Again, he talked in singular, not as in they or them. He used him. And that was really telling to me. Mac and I have gone back and forth, although, she has the true premise that this was somebody stalking Savannah, and this is a nut job like an Alan Hinckley that did this to get her attention, that this has nothing to do with a true kidnapping.
I kind of think it's a mistake, though, to hang on Sheriff Nanos' every word. It shouldn't be a mistake, but it is in this case for several reasons. One, he said he's already not used to it. Two, he's not as precise with his language. So he says, so Jen's saying here, oh, he said him, not they or them. I think Sheriff Nanos might have just said it and wasn't even thinking about they, them, or what pronoun he was using. He just said something. So I think it's kind of a mistake to look into it too much. And the other thing is he contradicts people all the time, and he contradicts himself. So with all those things being said, I'm not hanging on Sheriff Nanos' every word.
My side is definitely, I believe this was a purposeful, intended abduction of Nancy Guthrie, also based on the fact of her relationship with Savannah, and that it all went terribly wrong. So we have kind of two different premises, but there's a lot of things that we definitely agree on, including, the space, the vulnerability from the window, being able to be spied on. And then in addition, how she would be cornered. And I know some people said, oh, Jennifer, she's not cornered in there. Yeah, she's cornered in there. This is exactly from a tactical standpoint from 15 years as a SWAT operator. This is the exact position I want the bad guy in when I go to handcuff him. I want him to be blocked by obstacles and cornered like you would see here. She would have to shimmy across that bed. If she shimmied to the left, she's completely trapped. She can't go forward because that's where the bad guy would be. So yeah, she was 100% trapped, and tactically speaking, sadly, this is what this bad guy perpetrator and what law enforcement looks for whenever we're actually trying to apprehend somebody. So this was the perfect setup. And I just wonder how much this individual did the research. It's interesting because our team has been researching all of these. And as you see, I'm constantly posting in the evening, just so people, of course, keep their interest in this case, because once that diminishes, we might be diminishing whether somebody might actually be able to recognize Porch Guy, because the fewer eyes you have on it, the less chance that Porch Guy is going to be able to be fingered. All right, I want to go back, though, to this restaurant footage. There was this whole scene. It was really a neat segment. And it was basically where Savannah goes home. She goes home to Tucson. Clearly she was just a Tucson child. Her roots were strong there. She was very entrenched there. She went back to her sorority. She showed pictures of that. It was just really great. And this was a restaurant that she and her family had frequented forever. You can see it's an older restaurant. It's not run by the original owners, only because I believe they've passed, but they've passed it down to relatives. This is a family-owned, quite essential, really cool little Mexican restaurant. Here's the interior and footage from the NBC show where they showed them eating and talking and having margaritas and talking. It was just really sweet. And again, that's the whole purpose of the morning shows, is to really be part of their day and you to be part of their lives. It's the good morning shows are like that. It's nothing like the evening show where it's all about news. They're not worried about actually getting the affection or the closeness. And, that's just such an interesting part of this case too, because I think Savannah herself likely is concerned that this exposure made her mom a target. And I'm not blaming Savannah, certainly. I mean, all the morning shows do this. Certainly nobody could anticipate this. It's like blaming the Idaho 4 kids who didn't lock their screen or their sliding door. You can blame them all you want, but the only person responsible for that slaughter is Brian Koberger and his sick mind. That's who's responsible there. But that doesn't mean we can't learn from some of this. And when you look at this, I mean, I just can't, I'm just very convinced that all of this brought that relationship to light, brought that connection to light, and all that footage maybe was important to these abductors beyond what they did in their own surveys. Thank you. I appreciate it for that super sticker. I appreciate that so much. But anyway, back to this. So recently, and as I said, I was remiss not report. I didn't report on it on Twitter, and I knew there were just so many other great aspects of this case going on. And this, I remember thinking, oh, this is so routine, because it is routine. They went to this restaurant and conducted interviews, and that would be very, very normal. They should have gone to every restaurant, every nail salon, every boutique, grocery stores, wherever these two may have traveled together on a routine basis. Why is that? It's because there's a connection made. Savannah was a celebrity. This isn't just like somebody coming in. This is Savannah Guthrie, who is kind of a daughter of Tucson type person and well known. And I know for me personally, you know, I don't watch the Today Show. So, but I'm familiar with the names and the people. But there are many people who are, and especially if you're from Tucson, you are possibly going to know her. Now, I want to preface that statement by saying this. Please recall when everybody and their dog lined up for days on end covering Nancy Guthrie's house. This was before the permit was in place that tried to keep media out completely. It didn't work. But, you know, the vans can't go in there except for if a neighbor says they can park there. They can walk there. They can bring their equipment there that way. But it was intended to keep media out. And again, of course, they're there and on foot, and some neighbors are either paid or otherwise have agreed to, let them stay there. And believe me, they pay. These media companies will pay you. Have personal knowledge of that. So,
Now, I do agree with that. Improve yourself. That the more we know Savannah, I think mostly Savannah, because I think this is mostly about her. I don't think this was as much about Nancy, even though she was the one taken. But the more you know about Savannah, the more clues you can get to a possible motive. But as I always say about this, right, you always have to be prepared for the out of right field motive, such as in the Reagan assassination attempt. That was to impress Jodie Foster, which is absurd, right? But there could always be something like that too.
Anyway, nevertheless, there's still media there, but it was crawling with media. And this is my point. In the middle of this case, when it was most on fire and everybody was watching this case, do you remember that pizza delivery? Now, my understanding is JLR did it, but I think JLR actually wanted it. I don't think he meant it to go to the house. He just gave him that address. And whether it was JLR or not, I don't really care. That's not really the point of this. I know that the sheriff was ticked off, of course, and said, don't, and I'm sure that's what also instigated him wanting to get rid of all that media up front. I'm sure he had multiple complaints from neighbors and from the neighborhood. And then on top of that, the pizza incident and other incidents where it's been, this was when the house was being covered by Pima County officers, and he was allowed to just walk up there. And so I think it made them look like a little bit of egg on their face. But my point is, afterwards, and I posted this footage because it's so funny, the pizza guy's like, they call him down and he interviews, and I can't remember who interviewed him. but maybe it was John DePietro. I can't remember. Maybe multiple people. I've seen so much. Anyway, he says the pizza guy who I brought up before, he knows this place better than anybody, this county. And he says, no, I don't know who lives here. No, I don't. And they're like, the Nancy Guthrie case, you don't know. And it's so hard for many people in media and many people not in media, like you and me, true crimers, newsies, we know what's going on this case. Just like a hockey fan knows what's going on in the trade world or with owners, or if you're watching right now, the lead up into March Madness and everything. There are people who are absolutely glued every day to every game, trying to get ready because the big tournaments, the local tournaments are going on. I'm a basketball fan, and my alma mater is in, plays today at 3, hyped, go WSU. So I've got my mustard yellow for Nancy, but then I've also got it for the Wichita State Shockers. Let's go Shocks. I went to KU and to Wichita State, so I call myself a Woo Hawk. But definitely, not to get too off topic, but they play. My point is that when you're into what you are into is what you're going to be up on. And a lot of people hate true crime. I was recently, a few days ago, getting my hair done, and I walk into the salon and I'm always talking with all the girls. I love them all. They all do my hair. I just go from kind of one to the other, and one looks exactly like.
Yes, it was one of JLR's followers, a viewer, that ordered the pizza for him. They shouldn't have done that, but it wasn't JLR who did it.
Like a sister of Gabby Petito, and acts just with that same sort of sunshine, even butterflies. I actually posted a picture of her. But nevertheless, my point is that all of these people in there, and like one person sort of knew the name Nancy Guthrie. They said, but I think my mom's into that. And then another girl says, well, I don't know anything about that, but I have a friend who does. And people don't know. So, I just wanted to bring that home, that not everybody knows what's going on here. And that's why it's so important that we keep it in the news, because that's likely how this case is going to be solved. Although I continue to be confident with the fact that behind the scenes, law enforcement has, let's just say there's 100% of the evidence that exists. We know about 1%, everyone, 1%. All these hundred of agents, all these analysts, these Pima County officers.
So Jen Koffendorfer, former FBI agent, says we only know 1% of the information. And she would know because she's almost certainly worked with local law enforcement on crimes just like this. And she says we only know 1%. So that means the other 99% could completely change what we think and feel about this. But regardless of that 99%, they still haven't found Nancy, and they still haven't made an arrest. All those things can be true at the same time. But also, please remember to like the video while you're here. Likes are free. Likes are for my spirit animals, Shadow the Night Owl and Swift the Fox. Say hello to the flock of black sheep in here too. Very eccentric, but awesome group. And I would have it no other way.
There's the sheriff's officers, the FBI generally, they know what's going on. And they have a lot of investigation they've done that the YouTubers and reporters were not able to see because it's not where they're looking, right? They're still focused on Nancy's house. That's where they're grabbing any interesting thing. I tell you, that is not what I would be doing. I'm not going to say what I would be doing because then they'll start doing it, and that would be probably not good for law enforcement. So I'm not going to give my 2 cents on that. But they're all posted up still at Nancy's house. And but law enforcement is running around doing all these side investigations, including this one. They want to know, is there anything that they noticed in terms of anyone at their restaurant being particularly concerned about them or obsessed with them? Was there any nexus to somebody at this restaurant, anyone that was a super fan, anyone that really intimately or more intimately than a regular normal waiter knew. And and all the times they were there, were they there anytime, meaning Nancy, was she there anytime around her abduction? So they're going to want to get anything they can glean from that. I know a lot of you are thinking, well, these are just straws, they're straws, or I'm sorry, needles in a haystack, or straws in a straw stack. They are, not, great, amazing leads, but this is what the FBI does. They leave no stone unturned, and they're not going to leave one stone unturned in this case. So you can look for them going to all of Nancy Guthrie.
I mean, and just because an FBI agent is retired doesn't mean they're no longer good at their job. Some people just wanted to do other things, or they wanted to shift to another industry, or they got tired of it, right? All those can be true. Maybe they wanted a new thing. Like Maureen O'Connell, she does her security business now. I don't think she was a bad FBI agent. She just wanted to go do different things, I would think.
Guthrie's haunts. That's how I'll say it. Where did she get those nails done? She strikes me as somebody who would have had her nails done. In looking back at the footage I see of her, she likes me as somebody who might have been a boutique shopper, someone that loved to get all these lovely clothes that I see her in, somebody that might have had a special shop she liked to go to there in Tucson, in and around her area. Someone like everybody, we are all people of routine. I guarantee if you look at your life and all the people around you, there is a particular routine, unless they're a reporter or unless they're law enforcement. We have no routine. But your average American has a routine. They get up. The first thing they do maybe is go to the coffee pot. They make some coffee. The second thing they do is they have a time to either get on their phone and look at, messages that have come in, what's going on with my good friend, what's going on with my mom, blah, 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 blah. And then maybe they could go and do their grocery shopping, or maybe they go off and head to work. When they're at work, they probably have very specific places that they go to lunch, and people that they hang out with after. On Tuesdays, they play mahjong. On Wednesdays, they, stay home and cook. On Monday, they watch American Idol, whatever.
Now, that would be an interesting thing, especially considering the case that Ashley Banfield went over the other day. What kind of help was Nancy getting around the house? We already know there was pool people. Someone else in the chat said there was a handyman person. But what else? What other kinds of people were there coming over the house? That would be interesting to learn.
Whatever their routines are, we are creatures of habit. And it's just like Mac and I were talking about this. You can, from an investigative lens, because of all the homes you've been in of different people, you can make a lot of evaluation if you just look at their social media, look at what they've posted, look at different film of them, and you combine that with their age and their interests. You can say a lot about them. I mean, Mac basically listed off so much about my house, and I know I filmed in an area of one of the houses that I have, and so you can see some things depending on which house I'm at, right? It's going to look a little bit different, but because of that, you can kind of glean, and then I've shared a lot of things like what I like to do, my hobbies, and so forth, so people can probably kind of know what to expect that would be in my house. And it's the same with her, with Nancy. So anyway, the Bureau is going to try to get a full profile, profile of Nancy. And they're trying to figure out if bad guy, porch guy, and anybody else who may have been involved, they're going to try to do the same homework that those individuals could have done. Now, I want to go to something that JLR pointed out. And I know there's a lot of JLR haters. I understand his background. I understand the prison stints. I understand the fraud involved. I understand what he did in Sandy Hook. I understand it all. And for that reason, you can caveat what he has to say. You can be angry that he's making a lot of money. Look, people who make money doing streams and doing that, it's an honest living for those people. That's what they do full time. I hope everybody is successful at whatever they undertake. I don't care what you do. I'm in your I'm in your court, and I want you to be successful, everyone. And that includes people who stream because they provide an important service. You know, he's out there every single day and he's providing an important service. So I don't know. You can caveat everything he does with his background. But for me, I'm looking at what's happening now and looking at what he's doing on different cases. So, and I know he's crossed the line. I think he crossed the line in a lot of respects on this case, but nevertheless, his reporting is boots on the ground, and I pay attention to some of it. I look at all of them. I really like John DePietro out there. He's a guy I really could trust. Obviously, News Nation, Inton, all the News Nation reporters out there, Nancy Liu, all of them. I'm partial to News Nation. So I appreciate all of them taking the time to, believe me, I did that. I was at Brian Laundrie's house with Brian Inton for a long time. And it's hard work. It can be monotonous. You're sitting there, you're waiting for something to happen. And, for hours on end, it's kind of reminded me of back in the day doing surveillance. You're there for 8 hours and nothing happens. The next day, 8 hours, nothing happens. And 3 weeks later, on hour 2, all of a sudden something critical happens. So you're just kind of waiting for all of that. And that's what they're doing. It's a waiting game, and then they see things. But this I thought was really important. This was about, this map was purportedly, according to JLR, and he's again knocking on doors, trying to get people to talk to him. He says that a neighbor right after the abduction, right after, so before this has been, completely blown up, right after, because for me, I was on it right after, and I'll tell you why. I got a call from Chris Cuomo's producer saying, "Hey, we may need you tonight."
So this is Jen Koffendorfer. Make sure you support her channel. She's a retired FBI agent. I'm trying to get to the bottom of what she's trying to talk about right here. But every time she mentions it, she kind of goes off into another topic. So it's hard to follow. But I'm trying to figure out the significance of this.
On a case, it's a missing case of an elderly woman. So they're probably going to find her, but we just need you on standby. And then so that was my first inkling that something had happened, because of course news and media gets information before anyone else. So I immediately start scrubbing. Who is this? What is going on? Oh my gosh, Savannah Guthrie. And I was like, oh no, what I could see, I knew this was going to be very important. So you can see I posted right away on Twitter, and immediately was contacted by multiple outlets and was deep in the weeds on this. So it was at that time, like February 1, February 2, when apparently this map was given to neighbors in a group chat, like a group neighbor type chat. Again, Annie grew up here, grew up in this house. I posted it was bought in, I believe, 1975 for, I think, $85,000 or $87,000, something like that. And this is their home. Look, Annie lives 4 miles away. She's never left home, which happens with so many people. A huge percentage of people, where they grow up, where their roots are, they stay. They love it. They're comfortable. They have these huge established networks. People are creatures of habit. Now, yes, there are those people, like me and many others that fly, Haven't been home for quite a long time, but we still have roots there, still have many friends there, my first jobs, all those people where I got married, family, all of that remains. And so anyway, of course, she's probably got a group chat with neighbors. I have a group chat with neighbors. Doesn't everybody? I have a group chat with my neighbors, or, a group where we're all linked together for things that happen, like these bicycles, these really expensive motorized bikes that were stolen across the street from my house from a neighbor. Of course, because you just got to have that. Plus, if you live in any area where you have weather considerations, you're going to have a group chat. Anyway, so this all made sense to me when I'm listening to JLR talk about this, that there is a group chat and this was immediately sent out. Now, this was what was important. And I got to tell you, I took the time this morning to look at this route. And JLR, the only thing I wish he would have done, and he didn't, he does the route, which is like 21 minutes or something like that. Might have been longer, 21 minutes. He does the route from A to Z.
So what's the route, though? This is where Jen is actually helped a lot, I think, by Tony Bruschi and Joe Pags. In particular, Joe Pags, because he keeps her like boom, boom, boom. Like here, bang, bang, bang. We're on point. We're on task. Let's go.
And A, of course, is Nancy Guthrie's house. And then Z ends up at this crossroads. And the crossroads is basically en route to Highway 10, to US 10. And then there.
United States Dale. Is that the same United States Dale that's in our chat too? Maybe.
There's another road that is a busier road. Now, this is why I watched every second. What I said that I wish JLR would have done, I wish he would have done it at night. I wish he would have done this at 2:30 in the morning. That would have been spectacular. And hopefully he will. I really need to reach out to him and say, JLR, please do this route again in the night. But what I thought was interesting is that, of course, very early on, not police, but Annie was doing this. Now, some of you might say, well,
So what is the route? What is the significance of this route? Is it a route that they think that the person who abducted Nancy did? What is the route? Are they trying to figure out from that place where one of the cameras was with a car? I wish they would explain it.
How could that happen? It happens all the time, everyone, because and I'll give you an example of a case that many people know is the Idaho 4 case. Do you remember Steve Casalvas all over that case? For instance, that they had put out a timeline and it was wrong. Police had put out a wrong timeline. I don't know if you remember this. It related to Kaylee's phone and messaging, as I recall. And they had that. They had all that information. And they went on air and they were so irritated.
So this is a route from a map Annie posted on Facebook for people to check their cameras. Okay. So this is the route that they want people to check their cameras for, because I guess they think this is where the abductor might have gone, I imagine. Thank you for that, Rooster.
And they said they put it in a window of time instead of, they had the exact time. And Steve and, his other daughter, they were.
Rooster, I need to pull you up and put you in front of Jen Koffendorfer so you can explain.
Like, this is important. Like, can we please get this right, police? They were frustrated. And I remember I didn't have a show or anything, but I did a tweet all about that. And I said, oh, I know. I was on Cuomo about it. I said, yes, it's important. Come on, Ellie, get these times. We don't want the family coming out and saying this. And they investigated the whole time. They hired a lawyer. They hired an investigator. They were investigating. Their daughter, who was a really good investigator, was investigating. Everybody was from that family was looking into all the clues that they could have. And of course, they had a lot because they had information from Kaylee's devices, from information they knew from Kaylee, information they knew from Kaylee's friends because they would have access to them, to the boyfriend, because people wanted to help. And there's only so many places. So I'm not trying to be tough on police here. I'm just saying there's only so many places that the Pima County, so there probably was a detective on it early on, I'm sure some other officers, obviously the crime scene people were there for 20 hours. And I'm sure Annie Guthrie was going, well, listen, I've got this great network. I understand police are doing what they need to do. I am on this. Think about if it were your family member. I can tell you if something happens to one of my children or to my biological mother, to my family, I am going to be all over it, because I understand that law enforcement, while they have a lot of tools and they have a lot of people, they're not going to do everything right away. And I want it done right away. Anything that they're not doing. And I'm sure Annie said, hey, what?
So please remember to like the video. Like if you want Jen to get to it here and tell us what we're looking at and the significance of it. And likes are for my spirit animal, Shadow the Night Owl. Night owls are what I am, and most of the black sheep here are also night owls. And for Swift the Fox, from good old David in the Gnome, or David the Gnome, not End the Gnome. And thank you for all the support I've been getting so far. I go live almost every night at about 10 p.m. Eastern to talk about true crime and current events.
About this, and I'm sure law enforcement was checking it out, but maybe she felt like she probably called neighbors. Did law enforcement talk to you about this route? And they probably said no. And she said, oh my God, here's the map. This happens all the time because you can imagine you're wanting to find your freaking mother. And so anyway, this route to me was so important to watch. And I'll tell you why. It's such a circuitous route. There are, I think I counted 3 lights, and those were on the small stints where they went on roads that weren't the back roads. And they only did them for a short time. You can see I have the map up there. And then I might see one, like in front of the school, they pass by school actually. And then I finally see, some larger lights. Okay, this is what I don't see. For the most part, no lights. For the most part, the houses are way, way back. For the most part, there are no street lamps, as I mentioned. There are seemingly no lights at all. There's no traffic lights at all. This is as rural and as Arizona deserty as it gets. I lived in New Mexico for a while, and for me, it's not my cup of tea. Look, a lot of people love that desert life. I need green, I need water, and I need all of that. Everybody's different. A lot of people love it here. And I tell you what, I have family that live in Arizona as we speak, and they love it there because they don't get sick. There's no pollen. They don't have allergies. They're happy as clams there. It's a very quiet, desolate life. And so, I can see the quaintness and why people love that. Desert people, in other words, people who love this style, love this. A lot of other family in New Mexico, and they love it. So, but this is absolutely the quite essential reason, I guess, why I didn't like it there so much. This is so deserty. Like there's no grass. There's just cactus and pebbles and sand, and remoteness is the best way I could tell you. It's literally out of a scene. It could be a scene.
So I imagine that Annie's asking for this because she wants to get footage of maybe the abductor, whoever it was. Now, if you're going to be a little more cynical, right? Like Rooster just said, she wants to see if anyone saw her and the hubby. Not impossible. Not impossible.
Of a frightening movie because it's so dark and so desolate. And that's what this road is like. This road is winding and weaving. One road is called Roller Coaster Road, which I thought was interesting. And it's perfect. So do we know, because they pass by, in part of this, it goes by another road that goes off to Annie Guthrie's house, which I find interesting only because could the person, and I've said this from the beginning, the people, could they have got onto her from that drive, or were they laying in wait at one of the choke points, waiting for Annie to get home? Because remember, she was out till almost 10 o'clock that night. It's not like most 84-year-olds that I think are, or how about this, 50-year-olds that want to be home really early and settle in for their evening. So, you know, it's such a joke around people who have turned 50, you know, no more are you out and want, like, you're asleep by 9, 10 o'clock, at least a lot of people. A lot of my friends I know, they kind of just 10 o'clock, turn it off. But nevertheless, this is an 84-year-old, no less. And she is out and about with her family, playing game night, you know, having dinner. But anyway, this map is so important, I think, because a lot of people have said, well, you know, the video footage, where's the video footage? And Mac and I talked a lot about this, that you don't need to look at tens of thousands of cars, everyone. But I wonder if that's why they're expanding it, because on this dark road at night, if you turn your lights on, and believe me, there's nobody that's going to be out there. It's desolate. Like I said, there was one patch of road, maybe two patches.
Oh my goodness. She just can't like finish a thought. Like, explain the map. I like Jen, but at the same time, she's driving me crazy right now.
Small patches that you had to either cross or that you went on for a very short period of time on this route. But yes, there's cars when he went, because he went at, you know, I mean, I could tell it looked like it was maybe 5 o'clock or something at night. I don't know exactly, but I was just looking at where the sun was. But he went in the daylight during normal business hours where everybody's out and about. I want to see this JLR doing this with his lights off and doing it at 2:30 in the morning. If I were there, I would do that in 2 seconds. In fact, I'll call John DePietro and ask him to do it. Or yeah, I'll call John. Take this route. I wonder if you would be seen by any cameras, any Nest, any Ring. I don't think you would. And then on the place, like by the school that you could pass, could you be seen? Maybe.
I mean, I don't know whose addresses these are. Maybe Annie's, maybe Nancy's. I don't know. I don't think Jen has said.
I saw a street light there, and I saw 2 other street lamps. But I don't know. I mean, it's so dark and desolate. And I thought, wow, what a perfect route to get in and out of her neighborhood. This person practiced. This person knew her area. We've talked about that from the beginning. We've talked about the labyrinth of roads just leading in and out of her neighborhood. There's all sorts of different roads, but there's a reason that Annie thought this path could be important. I was thinking, in my view, is this a route Annie knew? Because she wants to go there, and then that shoots off the end point, shoots off at, goes to the highway. And I was thinking, are these the back roads she took? As we know, we all have back roads. I have back roads, no matter where I'm at, which residence I'm at. I have back roads. I know how to get in and out, and I never have to see a street light or a traffic light, I should say. So I think it's something to really, really, that this could be important. And thank you, United, for becoming a member. I really appreciate that. I want to get up here and see what this question is. Oh, it's a super sticker. Thank you, Susie. I appreciate it.
Remember, we are hyped that no hype is here.
Let me put this up because I want to, I just want to let everybody know how much I appreciate you, each of you, and your support. In any event, guys, this is really interesting to me. And I wonder if, because it was so desolate, this is my main overarching point of this map. One, the familiarity that this person has. And two, could this be why law enforcement doesn't have that car nailed down yet? The car that took her out of the neighborhood. Again, porch guy didn't just piggyback or fireman carry her out of this neighborhood. There's a vehicle involved. And they just need to be focusing on that time frame, 2:30 to, 2:30 to probably 3:30. Because let's face it, we know what time at 1:47 that the camera was detached, and we know at 2:28 she became at such a great distance from her Apple Watch that was still on her nightstand. So I'm going to show a picture again. So I know this was 13 years ago, but I doubt very much has changed. We don't know from the time her watch went out how long they stayed. No one knows that answer. No one knows that answer. Everybody wants to say, I keep saying, everybody wants to say 41 minutes based on the 1:47 and then based on the time of the Apple Watch. But there's no guarantees that when that Apple Watch went away from that bed, I mean, what was going on before that? Was she in that bed all that time for 41 minutes? She was. So not only really do we have a clue about how long she was in her bed, she was in this bed or bedroom area. I think it's like 6 to 12 feet, or I'm sorry, inches. I've read that it's that Apple Watch.
So that map, that took a long time to get over, not much. But what do you think that map was? Annie posted it apparently to Facebook, and I guess they're looking for the cams to see where someone went from that area. And I'm imagining that they include Nancy's house, maybe Annie's house on there too. And they're just shooting in the dark there about it. I mean, why is Annie doing that? Why isn't law enforcement themselves doing that, by the way? Right? Like, that's weird to me. Why is Annie doing the work? Maybe it's just trying to do it. Because like Jen said, if this was my mom, I'd be searching all day, all night and doing whatever. Maybe. But I gotta think, you would think the FBI / law enforcement would be asking the same things, right? They already did. They already did ask some of them. They went door to door and did that.
Needs to be it works by Bluetooth. It needs to be in close proximity. But whatever, it's going to be very close. It's not going to be a room away. What happened for 41 minutes in that bedroom? And then after the watch detached, how long did they stay? We don't have any of those answers, everyone. We have no idea how long she was in there. All right. Couple more points. IG. So we know a lot about the fact, and when I say a lot, we know about this DNA. Again, can we pick and choose what Sheriff Nano says, what we're going to believe and not believe? I think we have to in some regards, because he definitely, says something. I'll tell you the biggest one, as you all know, that just sticks with me was in his first press conference. He gets out there and he says, my officers were there Saturday night. It sticks with me because there's such a big difference between Saturday night and Sunday afternoon or Sunday late morning. I mean, at 11 or so when it was reported. It's such a disparaging comment to make. So, I wish he would clear that up. But nevertheless, I always find it interesting when people say, oh, we can't believe anything he says. And then they talk about what he says as if it is fact. So as I've said from the beginning, I trust what Sheriff Nano says, knowing that he is in the know. We know he's in the know. He's privy to the information. And we don't know who sources are. So it's not about whether you believe a reporter. It's not about whether you believe ABC or NBC or News Nation, my favorite. It's not about that. It's about who these sources are and why they would come out and say anything. And I've always said, and I had Dale Lundgren on this because he worked a lot of high profile cases. He worked a lot of low profile cases. He worked a lot of cases, but no matter what, I was just involved in one as an expert. It was a high profile case. And, this whole source thing, I just need to get off of it. I've said it enough. I just don't know a law enforcement source that is worth anything that would give information. I think it's people that are more removed, right? Somebody who's retired and they reached out to a buddy who knows somebody on the task force, and then that task force person said X, and then gets trickled down, and now your source is really the retired guy who really doesn't have much information because it's second or third or fourth hand. But nevertheless, we're getting a lot of source information in this case. And I just have to go back to citing, especially when it's in written writing, I'm going to believe it, because I don't believe working in these environments, working task forces, working alongside, it's rare for huge announcements such as the family is cleared not to be condoned by the FBI. The FBI supported that and supported that going out, just like when we saw it every week in the Idaho 4. This is not new at all, having people cleared. And I did a whole segment on it, so I'm not going to belabor how we clear and how to move on. You follow facts, and then when the facts come to a dead end, and they always start out with the inner circle, the number one people on my radar are going to be Savannah, Savannah's husband, Annie's husband, Cameron. Those are going to be number one with me. The people in her circle of watching video, church service video. The number one, that's where you start. And until you can 100%, at least in your mind, I should say 100, until you can pretty much 100%, you're not going to put that out there unless you're 100% believe that they're not involved. It's just like you're not going to charge somebody as law enforcement officer. You're not going to be behind that affidavit you're writing unless you 100% believe they're involved, not partially, not a little bit, but beyond a reasonable doubt. So when you clear somebody, it's beyond a reasonable doubt in your mind that you believe they're cleared. When you, as a law enforcement officer, write a criminal complaint or go to your prosecutor and say, this is the guy and here's my evidence, you 100% believe it's true. I always loved it when I would be on the stand and people would say, a defense attorney that wasn't very good would make the mistake of saying, so Agent Coffentaffer, are you telling these jurors that you believe this person's guilty? You believe my client, who has not been found guilty in a court of law, that they're guilty? And I would always say, yes. Do you think I would be here? Do you think I would do a case against somebody I thought was innocent? No. Beyond a reasonable doubt, from everything I've seen in the evidence, that guy is guilty. I loved it when they fell in that loophole. Please ask me what my opinion is, because obviously, as the case agent and officers who work on these cases, they know the evidence better than anyone, the breadth of the case, inside and out. So anyway, this is back to my point about the information that we know from the sheriff and why I am going to continue to say it. I do it with every case. Law enforcement and what they're willing to tell us That we know.
Rooster wins. He said, spank that like button. This is the BDSM chat. Spank it. And remember to subscribe to the channel. You only need one rep on the subscribe button, but you need a consistent rep on that like button.
Know the source because it's coming out of their mouth. We can judge for ourselves whether they have the ability to even have the information. We know when he says something, he has the ability. It's right there before him. He's working side by side with the Bureau, and depending on what charges this end up being, whether the FBI uses the U.S. charge for kidnapping under sub B because she was gone for that period of time. But if they find her there in the Tucson area, if they find her in that close by desert, if they didn't take her to Mexico, if they find her alive somewhere in this area, that's going to be Pima County who's going to be prosecuting that. That needs to be made clear to everybody. The FBI can investigate this as a kidnapping, which again is getting back to this motive that we're going to talk about. The FBI can look at it right now, but if she is found in that area, that will go straight on Pima County Sheriff. So if people think, even though right now it's definitely FBI led, FBI task force, FBI folks with Pima County all there, that sheriff is all up into every day with those detectives. You tell me if anything breaks, you tell me what's happening. I need to know for obvious reason. He does need to know. And this goes right back to Pima County unless she went across state lines or unless she went south of the border. But for right now, because FBI handles kidnappings, another reason, getting into this motive, he said, and I'm going to reiterate this, I talked about this yesterday, I did a members only yesterday. I think our members only, it's like $1.99 up to $3.99. We're having a raffle with the $3.99. I'll start that raffle just so everyone knows. And you don't have to pay any money to be in the raffle. But if you're a $3.99 a month member, your name is going into a hat. And why don't we say at the end of this case, because I think it's going to be solved. And
that's the other version of it. Akon, smack that like button.
I think it's going to be solved in terms of who's behind this. At the end, when we find that out, that's when we'll pick the name. We'll pick the name right then. And of who and what we're raffling off. I hate to use the word raffle, but what we're giving away to our $3.99 members. To one of them is going to be kind of a small FBI basket of FBI, true FBI, not what you get on the internet or Amazon or anything like that. It's going to be from headquarters, and it's going to be a collection of some pens and patches and coins, probably at least one coin, and things like that. So some people are like, listen, I could care less about that. I don't want FBI junk in my house. So, but for those of you interested, that's what we're doing. And I just really want to do something very special for those who are members, because it's just, I know it's $1.99 a month. You spend $1.99 or $3.99. That's less than what you spend on Starbucks maybe every day for those Starbucks goers. But it just means a lot to me to have y'all here. And I'm going to start doing a few more member videos only, that you can only see it if you're a member, and minimally that you can see it first. But while the Nancy Guthrie case is going, I'd really like to get that open to all subscribers and everyone, because right now it's critical. And thank you so much, Julie Hamilton.
She's right. Members only live streams are good, or members only videos can be good.
Huge amount of attention.
And green.
Let's now move over to another case that we've been watching now for.
Robin Dreek, former FBI agent, psychologist Siobhan Scott. We haven't seen Siobhan Scott for a while. I was actually in talks to get her on the channel at a point, but I kind of dropped the ball and haven't reached out to her for a little while. So I probably should.
32 days as of this recording, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. And despite tens of thousands of tips, extensive forensic analysis, and around-the-clock investigative work, there's still no suspect in custody, no clear resolution in sight. What has emerged, though, is an avalanche of theories: cartel kidnappings, coordinated ransom schemes, private jets to Puerto Vallarta, even retaliation for U.S. drug policy. The public has gravitated towards these elaborate narratives with fervor, but the evidence on the ground tells a very different story. An unprepared suspect who didn't even know there was a doorbell camera, improvised plant material to cover the lens, and amateurish weapons handling. So why is it so hard for so many people to accept that this might simply be a burglary gone catastrophically wrong, especially when it involves someone famous? Joining me and Robin Dreek to discuss, Siobhan Scott, psychotherapist and author. As always, Siobhan, welcome and thank you for being here. Let's just start right there. This is a big case. Obviously, it has a huge amount of attention. Nancy's not just one of 600,000 people that go missing in the United States every year. I mean, she is, but the level of attention to detail and focus on this is certainly far beyond what 99.9% of those missing people get. And even that hasn't really proven to be all that much more powerful or effective at finding her. What do you think is going on here with just kind of the general outlook that our society has on this case? Are people expecting something much larger and much bigger because the story is so large and so big, and it's really hard to kind of wrap one's mind around that this may be something very simple and very stupid?
Yeah, our human brains are storytelling machines. It's how we get through the world, how we try to make sense of the world. And people love an exciting narrative, I mean, it's why we watch action movies or whatever. It's like people just get a little sense of pleasure out of the excitement. And it doesn't mean they have any malevolent intent. It's not like they're wishing that way, but it's just kind of a human tendency to fill in the gaps when we don't know what happened with speculation. And, going back to that dopamine thing, it's a little exciting to imagine that it's this big, elaborate, plot by a cartel or something like that. So I think it's just kind of a human tendency.
I don't think it's based in the cartel. At the most, I would say maybe someone in an organized crime was hired, but the people who orchestrated it somehow know the family, I think.
So, boy, this case, as Tony knows, we've handled so many conspiracy theories on this, and which is fun to entertain from my standpoint because it.
Thank you very much for this, Heather. I really appreciate the super chat. Thanks for all the support that you've been giving me on this channel as well. Heather's been here for quite a while, so make sure you thank Heather for supporting me. Thank you very much, Heather.
I enjoy breaking them down and piece by piece, bit by bit, so you can debunk conspiracy theories. But that takes a level of curiosity to want to do that. I'm curious. Curiosity is born in us as a species, because without it, we would not survive into adolescence, into adulthood. What prevents people from becoming curious about, they grab onto these stories, and granted, we're a species that has evolved because we're storytellers and we have the ability to share thoughts and ideas through story and anecdote. But what is the human resistance to curiosity about those stories to dig deep? Because that's what keeps happening here is people grab onto these some real nutter theories and they just will not let go.
I think it's sort of that emotional investment. And once they make a public commitment to a story, it's almost like, well, this is my story and I'm not letting go of it. So you've got that ego investment in it.
Yeah.
And they they enjoy their story and they want to stick
ego
to it.
investment. Good one on that one too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing to think of, the ego investment in it. And people, they're going to run it through their own prism and their own life experiences and who they've interacted with in their life. And without a doubt, the stories that
Rooster did drop a gem. He said that trust and the government do not belong in the same sentence because, as Reagan said, the scariest words in the world are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
we come across, that there's certain ones that hit closer to home for each and every one of us, depending on what we've all gone through. And those ones that hit closer to home are I gravitate towards some of them more. I feel like I can speak to them more because of that relationship. And in a case like this, where you have all these theories out there, you have, and the family's obviously been cleared, but you still got people that are leaning on the family. You still got people that are leaning on the friend over here. You got people that are leaning on this person over there. And in each of those lanes, there's the villain, if you will. I'd be really curious for the folks that are hanging on to some of those lanes and still repeating things that have been debunked over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with curiosity, but when you can't get out of the lane, even when you've been proven wrong, there's a problem. And what I'm wondering is, if we were to go to those people and take a look at their own history, if the ones that are having thoughts on the family, if you would find that those people had issues with their own family, and so forth. If you found it was this type of person over here, if you find that that person had issues with that type of person in their life in some shape or form, and they're basically deflecting their own issues, their own neuroses on these people onto this case because it makes it more relatable. But then they're also kind of subconsciously, it's becoming more personal to them in ways that they're not even aware of.
Yeah, we call that projection, right? They're taking their own history and putting it out there on other people. And I find the speculation about the family members' involvement particularly troubling. I mean, my gosh, these people are going through hell, and knowing that there are people out there who are blaming them for it or holding them responsible in some way. That's just really toxic. I that really makes me cringe when I read those things.
I mean, it's always important to ask questions and dig and look at the beginning of an investigation. As in this case, the family's always going to be looked at first. That's not anything unusual. They're going through and they're checking the boxes to go, okay, we can rule this out and we can keep looking. Right. But you got to start somewhere. But again, is it also? We are in such a weird place in our society right now. I know we've talked about it before, where when somebody digs into something, they don't want to be wrong. Why are we in such a place? Have we always been here where people don't want to be wrong on things, and now everybody has a platform to not be wrong about the things they're wrong about?
It does seem people dig in online, and once they dig in and they take a stand, they're going to argue their stand, and that's sort of like their ego death if they had to let go of that. I'm not going to let go of it. But I also notice, I don't always read all the comments that come up online, but when I do, you've got some people who really are pretty good at wanting to look at evidence and analyze it and think it through, as you say, be curious. And other people just aren't very good at it. I mean, you can tell the things they say that they're not thinking about this in a sophisticated way, which we've probably always had that variance in people who can analyze data and be open-minded and try to look for real evidence, and they're grounded, just kind of grounded people. And then you've got people who are just kind of simplistic thinkers. So it's probably always been that way.
Yeah.
It's a shame too, because the amount of resources we have now compared to even like a year or 2 or 5 years ago, with our ability to research online all these things, is pretty profound. I mean, it's so. I mean, most of what I do is not like I come up with all my research stats, averages on all the things that we do, because I'm always curious about it, and I'm always looking to ground it on truth and reality, not on conjecture. conjecture is fun, but then you got to see if it actually holds water or not.
Yeah.
We have the resources to do this. I mean, I'm not pulling anything from my experience and background of 22 years with the FBI where I'm coming up with these stats. I'm literally researching it real time. And so how do you re-spark that curiosity in people to interrogate these thoughts? And because that's the biggest problem with social media today is people are just consuming surface level clickbait garbage and running with it. How do you inspire an entire generation of people to just take it in and let's interrogate that information to see if it holds water? Because we are going down some dark paths if we don't.
Yeah, it's troubling, and everybody can be loud, and sometimes the loudest people have the dumbest ideas. And how do we inspire them? I mean, I've literally, I try to, if I put something in writing, particularly like on Substack or in other social media, I try to do my research, and I try not to state something as a fact unless I have backup for it. And I can say there are studies, we've got data. And, then I've got the 65-year-old truck driver named Fred who didn't graduate high school telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. And he's going to die on this hill over this issue. And, that's when I have learned they don't care. He's not a thinker. He's not going to look at data. He doesn't know what data is. And just let him be wrong and move on. But
one word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mel Robbins. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I went back to the other one after you got me to read that book, and my wife read it too. After let them, I always say to my wife, let me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Siobhan, let me ask you this. I mean, after, we're like I said, as we're recording, we're 32 days into this. We know very little about this person other than the fact that they thought, putting cilantro on a doorbell was going to be, something great. And they have a Walmart backpack. There's very little that's known, but based on what we do have, again, very little. So I temper it with that. You wrote, your book here, The Minds of Mass Killers. What strikes you? We have nobody that's come forward that's, taken up anybody on the ransom, or anything. There's just nothing, no communication, period. And the last we know is that they put stuff on Nancy's doorbell and Nancy's gone. What kind of person is this? Is this a...
Snow Baby just came up with a good one too. There's a hit on the like button. Make sure you follow through on that hit of the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already as well. I go live almost every night at 10 p.m. Eastern to talk about true crime and current events. And make sure you say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat. Very eccentric group, which is the only way I'd want it, by the way.
Mass killer? Is this a kidnapper? Is this a cartel? Is this a B&E that's just gone wrong and somebody's hiding?
Yeah, I go with the simplest explanation that fits what evidence we have. And as you say, we don't have a lot, but it doesn't have the sophistication of a cartel. It doesn't have, the mass killers that I write about were people that go out and try to, the mass shooters particularly, go out and take out as many strangers as they can in a public place. It's certainly not someone like that. It does seem, to some degree, it looks targeted. That's what they've said, that they thought it was targeted, but that doesn't mean sophisticated. Mm-hmm. And it looked like a person, to my mind, most likely a person coming in for a burglary. There was a confrontation.
Oh, Siobhan's on this one. I disagree with Siobhan on this one. Not a burglary. I think targeted. And again, everyone says amateurish, not sophisticated, mostly because of the foliage and the camera part. But it's like, hey, this amateurish, novice person, they've gotten away with it for 42 days, didn't leave any DNA behind, no sign of Nancy. So how amateurish were they? But I do not think it was a burglary gone wrong. How could you think that? How can you think that when there was nothing of value taken? Besides Nancy herself, of course. And I agree more with if you go during the day, you're there for things. You go at nighttime, you're there for the person. That's just me.
and there was a bad outcome. And then the person sort of, goes into a panic. What can I do? Well, if there's no body found, it's going to be harder to prove anything, which is true in many cases. And that's sort of what I expect. And this person may just be very quiet about it. And we have seen other cases, I've certainly seen them, where people have been murdered and they just never talked. Yeah. And so it's sad, it's unfortunate. We'd rather that there was a ransom that the family could pay and then have a good outcome, but it's not looking like that.
Yeah, it's not the way it works in those ransom cases either. And you're citing all the great examples of again, you just look at the research, you look at the background of types of cases like this. And I've said this before too, is I think, and someone put this in the comments earlier, they haven't caught the guy yet, and they caught Koberger. When it comes to sophistication, but we still have time on this. We're still within a window of people being caught. And I still think when they do catch this individual, because Pena County Sheriff's, as I said the other day, has a very, very good rate of catching the bad guys. The clearance rates in that county are very good. Their detectives are really good, at least their track record is. And I think people are going to be extremely underwhelmed with who this is.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. It's going to be a hard one to describe. And I think you're saying that.
And Christy, I do agree. I mean, luck can be a large part of a lot of things. Luck, and this is why they say life is more like poker than it is like chess. Because in chess, the more skilled person wins. But life, it is not always that way. Look at a Texas Hold'em hand. Sometimes the best player does not win, and the person can do everything wrong and still win. So that's why they say Annie Duke, the professional poker player, that's what she would say. Life is more like poker than chess for that reason.
Word targeted earlier, and that word just keeps getting thrown around, and I think there's a real confusion on terms and the weight that they have and what they actually mean with people, and I think that's a big confusion point in this case and in many cases, because when you say the word targeted, I feel like some people will invoke, depending on their prism, of what that actually means. And they hear targeted. Oh, they picked Nancy Guthrie because, and they assign all these other things to it that aren't there. Targeted can simply mean old lady, sleeps at night, has money. House in a neighborhood that is difficult to navigate and get around, and nobody's just driving around there. That's targeted. That's targeted. It doesn't mean because it's Savannah Guthrie's mom or because of this or because of that. It can just be something so simple. And the more that we hear about this case, the more we hear about this neighborhood too. I was on Court TV last night talking about it, and they were kind of going around and showing the neighborhood. It is very secluded. It is very much by itself. It's a perfect place to do a B&E because you're not going to have drive-by traffic that's going to see anything weird. People are like, see, it's targeted because it's so secluded. Because they were not pointing it out because of that reasoning. It was like, it's targeted because it's Nancy Guthrie's house. No, it's because nobody's going to catch anybody doing this.
And here's the impact of that word targeted. And this is where our confirmation biases come in, because so think about this. As a society, especially in the U.S., when we hear the word targeted, when other times in our lives have we heard the word targeted? Well, we hear it when we watch Mission Impossible, Born Identity, Criminal Minds. So we see this world most often in a fictional Hollywood way, and so now
Robin just reminded me of Criminal Minds. What do you think Gideon from the first 2 seasons of Criminal Minds? I would like to hear his breakdown of this whole case, Gideon. In fact, I want to vote. I want to give a proposition to the guy, Mandy Patkin, I think his name is. I'm like, Mandy, why don't you create a YouTube channel, a true crime YouTube channel where you play the role of Gideon, as long as you don't get sued for doing so, but play the role as Gideon and talk about these cases from the angle of Gideon. I think that would be pretty interesting.
we're equating that word targeted to everything we see in law enforcement, which is reality and not that fiction we see. And so we expect different things to happen because we have this grandiosity thought of what's going to happen based on these TV shows and hearing that word targeted. That's why I think we're going to be underwhelmed with that. And also that word targeted, means a lot of different things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, very, very, very true.
It sounds big. It gets attention, and people pay attention. It's a keyword. It's a hot word that people tend to gravitate to. Obviously, very sad case. Still no answers, and we'll keep talking about it. All right, Siobhan Scott, psychotherapist and author. As always, thank you so much for being here and giving us your insight on these cases. Robin Drake, retired FBI Special Agency for the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. As always, thank you for being here. If you want to weigh in on all of these cases, please do so. Our Substack, our YouTube, the links are in the description. Love to get your thoughts. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this so you don't miss any of our coverage. We'll continue our conversation in the comments section. Until then, for Siobhan, Todd, and Robin, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.
The suspect on Nancy Guthrie's porch has now been unidentified for more than 34 days. He has survived the largest missing persons response in recent Arizona history. He's watched hundreds of investigators work the neighborhood he was in.
Yeah. So, Laura, no shade to that guy, Joe Mentagna, or whatever his name was, but he was no Gideon, right? So Gideon and his dynamic with the rest of the cast is there was some magic in the show when he was there, but his presence was definitely missed. And it's kind of similar how I think of Game of Thrones. Once Tywin Lannister's character was gone, there was a massive presence missed in the show. Now, granted, in the books, he was just killed off. So that's why it happened. But it didn't have to happen in Criminal Minds. But you can, and that's how you know someone's special, that you really notice their absence.
Watched his face or what's visible of it broadcast nationally. He knows there's $1 million reward. He's been living with whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie for over a month. From an FBI standpoint, a perpetrator in that position isn't static. They're doing something. They're behaving in ways that create vulnerabilities. And that's exactly what investigators are banking on right now, amongst many other things, looking for some sort of a sign, looking for something that's going to put up a flag and help us identify who that person is. Right now, Jennifer, what are they looking for? What are the signs that...
And again, so let's see. Tony's going to do a good job with Jen here. She's not going to go off topic like she does on her own stream. But also, as I've been mentioning, and Brian Koberger proved this, he said he was watching Brian Etten's coverage of his case. So I said before, the person who has done this, they can be watching all of these cases. They might have watched Brian Etten. They might have watched Megyn Kelly, Jen, Tony, myself, JLR, all of them, right? That's certainly possible. Kind of admiring their work, feeling important from all the things they did and the impact they caused. Yeah, if they have any kind of narcissistic streak, they would love it. Like, oh yeah, look at all these guys I got talking about what I did. Makes them feel special, makes them feel important, makes them feel grandiose.
They are seeking out. Obviously, we've talked about they're looking to try and identify the vehicle in any way, shape, or form in some sort of a pattern around that house or some sort of a path that would have been making sense for that moment in time. They've looked at the backpack, everything that they have beyond the obvious, beyond the things we've already talked about 1,000 times. What might else they be searching for in the ether, in society, in communities, in groups that may lead them to the identity of who this person is?
I think you're looking at one of the number one things would be post-event behavior. In other words, this is a person that just did something that you would think was pretty stressful, abducted somebody, likely responsible for them no longer being here with us. And you would be looking for, and really this is going to have to be disclosed by somebody that's in his circle, is behaviors that show that stress, behaviors.
And quick, folks, slap that or spank that like button. We're on the devil's number. Got to make sure we get off of that. Yeesh, don't want bad luck around here. But also remember to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And remember, super chats, great way to support the channel and get questions answered. Super stickers, great way to support the channel. And becoming a channel member gives you access to the members only live streams. Also, to become a mod, you do need to be a member. I think that's the only bar there is to becoming a mod.
That show how upset he is, that how out of sorts he is, that don't account for his time frame. And then the reason that could be important too are things that they sometimes write on social media or have texted somebody that at the moment investigators can't see it, but after the arrest that can be used. So unfortunately, Tony, if you're asking me if there's some beacon of light out there, 100%, but the problem is the people seeing it may either be in denial that no, that can't be him, or they know it and they love him and they're not coming forward. And it's going to take him, cheating on them or something before they come forward, which I have to tell you is how so many cases get solved.
Yeah, and this is a tough one too, the post-event behavior. It's a great phrase, Jen. And there's a couple of possibilities why we're not seeing. I mean, you go back to, we've mentioned Koberger a few times, in hindsight, we have the post-event behavior of him being on Facebook pages or suspected, even though law enforcement say it wasn't. There's a lot of leakage that was going on in social media-wise that was kind of pointing at someone that looked like him. And so in this case, it looks like, and I'm curious what your thought of it are about why we're not seeing more that we might have seen in other cases, because one of the things I'm thinking is like maybe that his circle of trust is so tight and so small that the post-event
circle of trust. What is this? The Meet the Parents with Robert De Niro, including Ben Stiller in the circle of trust?
behavior is known to a very small circle. He maybe not have a job anywhere else. That's another possibility. Or he's so practiced at doing this, like on that front porch, that maybe his post-event behavior just didn't change as much as we might otherwise expect or hope. Any ideas on why you think that is?
Yeah, again, such great thoughts on this. If this is, and by the way, I've veered back to my normal mantra, which is Occam's razor, the simplest is usually the solution.
Yes.
I'm about 80% on this case there. I'm leaving the door open for my other possibility, but I'm like 80% there.
But here's the thing. What is Occam's razor in this case? What is the most likely scenario? Like, seriously. Because it's a weird case to begin with. So when there's a weird case to begin with, Occam's razor is a little more difficult. But I mean, Occam's razor would still be that it's someone in the family or close to the family, right? To me, right? And then what? And then to punish, is Occam's razor to punish Savannah or revenge on Savannah? I guess so, right? But what do you think, chat? What do you think the Occam's razor is? The most likely case, the most obvious case. What do you think it is in this?
That is an abduction that was planned, that has a connection that's a little bit more on the edge, but nevertheless, somebody that's been in that house, knows that house, knew Nancy, and provide just enough information that they knew this could be a money trove, kidnapped, and then it all went to hell. She dies, and they're like...
So Jen's back on this, or this is just an older episode? I can't believe Jen would think that now. So Jen thinks Occam's razor would be robbery, kidnapping gone wrong? No, not Nancy Guthrie. If it's another random person and it's during the day, okay. But it's Nancy Guthrie. It's Nancy Guthrie. And of all the people, it's Nancy Guthrie, mother of Savannah Guthrie. I think there's more to it.
I am out. I'm getting rid of the body, and I'm in complete abort mode. And as you said, amongst people like that and a group like that, just say it's I don't know if you agree, Robin, that it's more than one, but I think if this is the case, that it was a couple of people, 2 to 3, that decided to do this abduction, kind of kind of those gangy sorts, but not necessarily a part of a official gang or cartel, but are on the outskirts doing, hijacking cars, taking cars and stripping them down and selling the parts, and robberies and all these other things. And so you have this criminal element, and they are so loyal and quiet amongst they're not going to leak it out. Like I said, it's usually the girlfriend that leaks it out. So to your point, the circle is so small and so tight, it's not going to be leaked because they have all sorts of criminal behavior on each other, and they've never leaked it.
Yeah, I agree on the tight circle, and it's interesting because I was.
And remember, do your Michael Jackson routine and just beat it to that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
Even going down the road again today, kind of to your point of what your theory is on the working theory of the targeted abduction. I'm still, again, I always start with research and background on similar cases, and then see if the data we're seeing supports or defends it right now. And everything right now, because this is such an unusual case, that everything is remote possibility because it's that rare and unusual. Mm-hmm. And so the research I just did on this, because I know it's been coming out that a few people have been saying that the panic escalation of a targeted home invasion and removing the body, it very rarely happens, very remote, because that's kind of my working theory.
And so this is the one argument I would actually agree with of not being multiple people, is multiple people equals more DNA equals more chances to get caught, more evidence left behind. So the fact that they've gotten away with it 42 days so far, that would be pretty impressive for it to be multiple people. So that's one thing I will say. I've thought the whole time that it was likely 2 or more. However, the fact that if it's multiple, they've gotten away with it that long, because let's face it, more people is more chances to get caught, more possible evidence left behind, more possible DNA left behind, more possible chances to be caught on cameras. All true.
On it was that it was not for abduction because of probabilities. And so and here's the numbers, and that's why it's so remote. First of all, both possibilities extremely remote, but targeted for her specifically for abduction.
Thank you very much, Mike. Jared, your thoughts on JLR leaving tomorrow? I'm not sure why he is, because he'd be the only one left at this point if Brian Netton's leaving, right? Brian Netton's already left. I guess maybe the views and the attention's drying up. So at some point, I knew this was going to happen. You got to pack it up at some point, if nothing else new's going on. So I give him credit for being there for as long as he was. And thank you, Mike.
For monetary gain is at 15 to 20% based on data that we're seeing post-event. This isn't that, and granted, we are only seeing what social media has and what the sheriff has released. And then when it comes to targeted home invasion for robbery with a post-event escalation of removing her for DNA to hide DNA, because again, the probability of removing someone from the home post-event as a panic escalation, extremely remote, but still a possibility. But for DNA evidence, stands with what the data we're saying is standing at 40 to 50%. So, and there's still, so in other words, those two things are very tight based on data and past cases. But man, but how crazy is this? It's a challenge on both sides.
I just don't believe it was a robbery or a burglary. For me, I mean, Robin, the reason I just can't buy it is nothing tells me that. It wasn't, it was when she was home. It was a full backpack. Burglars don't want any connection, and they're not going to take the person. I can't find one place where they took the person except for a case in South Carolina.
So she tricked me. She was talking before like she was saying it was a burglary, but now she's saying, no, it wasn't. So I must have just misunderstood her.
Where they took the 80-year-old recently. And the reason was he wasn't masked. And that was a opportunistic type situation. He broke down his car he stole, broke down next to this woman's 80-year-old's house. So he goes in to steal her car, gets caught, spends an hour hanging out there, and then he takes her and he shoots her in the back of the head. It's an FBI case. But that's because she saw him, right? So he had to. And also it was a crime of opportunity. That's the closest case I can find to this case, because 80-year-olds just aren't stolen. Back to your stats.
I know.
Well, I mean, we also don't know what happened inside that house either. I mean, there is, the possibility, the guy was masked up, but did he reveal himself to her at some point? His face in some way, shape, or form. And then that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And it was, well, I got to get rid of her now, because for that exact same reason you're describing there. How likely is it, though, that this is a multiple person event? Just considering where we're at now, not just like as a whole in an ether of someone going in and doing a B&E or doing an abduction, but based on what we know now, we have no fractures. We don't have multiple. If it's multiple people, that certainly then spiders off into the world of all the people who may want to talk, who may have some incentive to talk or turn somebody in, or a lover or somebody flip. $1 million is a lot of money at this point now for someone who might be on the edge of these people, but we still don't have anything at all.
I mean, I'd put in a vote for, in every public bathroom for men, there should be a permanent "Don't stand so close to me" playing over the loudcom, the intercom.
Does that decrease the likelihood that there's multiple people here, and that this isn't just one person? Something horrible happened with Nancy, got rid of the body, and hasn't told a single soul, and is just continuing on with life as if nothing ever happened. Because if that's what's going on, they're doing a pretty damn good job at it. And the leakage out to others is seemingly non-existent.
Well, that's where my 20%, I'm reserving that.
Yeah.
That's my Occam's razor theory, which was my first theory. And that was that this was about a retribution. This was a reckoning. This was personal. This was somebody who would have stalked Savannah, knew Savannah, wanted to be known by Savannah, and was either not really disparaged, but just ignored. The fantasy of sort of being closer to her than this person was. If that is the case, which it could be, I mean, from the book talking about the kidnapping, from all the verbiage that's used in these notes, from, the fact that we at least maybe don't see anybody else on video. If you take all that together, that would have to be a single person in my view.
My favorite razor is not Occam's razor, but it's Hanlon's razor, which is: never attribute to malice what could first be attributed to stupidity. I told that one to H.G. Tudor, and he really got a kick out of that one.
If it's that. But I'm just not sure anymore. First of all, I'm not even sure that other photo, I'm not sure that that's not another person. I know the source saying it's a different day. And I hate to be so, Robin, you got to tell me what you think about sources, because FBI sources are so different. We have to vet them. And if they don't come up with usable knowledge, we boot them in 2 seconds. FBI agents have amazing sources, because guess what? That's a third of what we're evaluated on our.
That's really the only thing.
And probably in your world. In my criminal world, I'm evaluated, of course, on my investigations, but then on my intelligence. I bet you on your side, it was greater on the intelligence side.
Much more.
Mike says he loves Jen Koffendorfer's sherbet-colored jacket there, which always reminds me of the Bert and Ernie joke, where Bert asks Ernie, would you like some ice cream, Ernie? And he says, "Sure, Bert."
So yeah, and then the vetting we had to go through for the sources, and we had to go through the validation unit. It was a real pain in the ass to get quality sources on board to give us that information, and to the points on all these things. That's why it's such a challenge. And I'm glad you're holding out 20%. I'm holding out my 20% on the different things as well. And I'll get back to Tony's original question on the numbers on this and potential other people being involved, because there's probabilities based on that. But the challenge in this is there hasn't been leakage of information or data, other than someone saying this about a photo or not a photo, another person. So here's what the stats are saying: if it's a home invasion that went sideways with an escalation, it's a higher probability it was a solo act. If it's a targeted...
And if you like a good dad joke from time to time, make sure you've liked the video. Likes are free. Leave your DNA on that button. I've ordered a hit on the like button too, by the way. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And come say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here. And so far, we've got a demerit for George. And demerit for Livin for not being here as well.
For abduction, there's a higher probability of 2 or 3 people involved, but then you wouldn't know them if it's a tight circle. So those things are kind of depends on what they think the theory is. And those are really the 2 major working theories. And there's just...
I have a headlining act at the Chuckle Hut, Laura. Thank you very much.
So little data to support either one of them, except on the abduction side or a retribution side. In most of the cases, you have some sort of leakage. And if it's a stalking case, there's always a digital footprint. There's journaling. There's leakage. Now, granted, Savannah is a very public figure and, probably gets hate mail or whatever, and typical stalkers that a lot of public figures get, but there just hasn't been any standouts that law enforcement have been able to say at least that they've locked onto. So both sides are kind of coming up dry with like 20% of this or 20% of this. And I think that's why they're going down both these roads, which makes it challenging for law enforcement, because you don't have a major one filter that you're going down. You have to maintain 2 filters of 2 really main leading possibilities. Is that what you're seeing, Jen?
So for me, again, I have completely locked out the burglary gone bad.
Okay.
Home invasion gone bad, whatever we want to call it, just because working those cases, these are smash and grabbers. Like they're in 7 seconds. They're in, they're out, they kill the person, they leave the person. I literally can't think of a case where they took the person in something like that. So just personally for me, I've got that as 0.1%.
Mm-hmm.
The abduction gone bad, I have as, because it's such an Occam's razor, I have that at a really high percentage. And then I just can't, for some reason, let go of this possibility of, the wackadoodle, the, what's his name again? I've talked about this a lot. The Jodie Foster lover.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the celebrity notoriety is going, and that's what it's called, celebrity notoriety. Yeah. And when are just trying to impress the person by, making the attempt of assassination, because that was, I know it was Reagan's assassination attempt.
Hinckley,
John Hinckley.
Yeah.
That was a celebrity notoriety. It had nothing to do with necessarily Reagan. It had to do with trying to impress Jodie Foster. And that's what that's my working theory too, with the first Trump assassination attempt as well. That was more about celebrity notoriety. If you're looking at a young boy trying to impress his father with his firearm and all that garbage.
Yes. I wonder if that's a trickle of that. Sorry, Tony.
I'm very much wondering what they have behind the scenes in terms of communication or messages to Savannah Guthrie, if there is something down that road. I would imagine they've combed through emails and everything that comes in. Only a small percentage is what she's going to actually see because of the volume of which someone like her, she would get. But within that stack of stuff, maybe some signs, maybe some evidence of who this person might be, someone who is not being responded to, someone who is feeling ignored by Savannah, and then maybe this is part of that. It's an ask for attention in a real sick way. We just don't know yet. That's the thing. There's always outliers. There's a reason why we have percentages on cases where it's like 80, 90% this, but there's still that 10% over there. This might be one of those cases that makes those stats why we have the 10%, why we have the 1%, because it might just be one of those outliers. Your thoughts in the comment section on Substack and YouTube. We'd love to get your feedback there.
All right. Bye-bye, Tony. So that's really it for the night. We can chat for a minute, though. No, but The Departed was really good. Phoenix, welcome. You missed us, though, for the very most part. We went over a video that is AI more than likely, but it could be someone impersonating AI for all I know. He seems to be hard on Tommaso and the other guy from the band. I don't know, though. I don't know. But also there's the Johnny Depp movie. The Johnny Depp movie, Donnie Brasco. You know, real mobsters say Donnie Brasco is the most realistic mob movie. Did you know that? But Marty Scorsese, because the Casino and Goodfellas. Casino is almost like Goodfellas 2 in a way, even though it's a completely different place. Las Vegas versus wherever they were in Goodfellas. But The Departed was really good too. In the early 2000s, made a lot. Marty makes some good soundtracks for movies, doesn't he? So in The Departed, you see Gimme Shelter with the Rolling Stones. George Harrison in Goodfellas. Silver Linings Playbook with what's his face? What's his face from The Hangover? Bradley Cooper. Empire the show or Empire the movie? And Miss Kim's doing a great job getting the likes up here. I don't know how many likes we're at, but while you're here, please remember to like the video. And Sopranos, best mob show of all time. And you get so many more hours of footage with them too than you do in a movie. How many hours of screen time does Tony Soprano have because of the seasons of The Sopranos? Hours and hours, right? Oh, wow, Jolly. Hinckley lives up the street. I won't say where. He chills and plays the guitar. He has a girlfriend now. Wow. Small world. I guess he's gotten over the Jodie Foster thing. I guess if you ever see him watching Taxi, though, you better watch out. Yes, Kat should watch The Sopranos. So many quotable lines from The Sopranos. Early 2000s HBO was probably the most classic of all eras of television because you had The Wire, The Sopranos, and 6 Feet Under, which is also a great show. And those 3 shows were pretty much on at the same exact time. And you know what the common thread was? All of this is before social media. I think back then shows were amazing. But now it's tougher. Stranger Things was the last big cultural phenomenon. Game of Thrones before that. There were a couple good ones. Oz with the dude from State Farm as the Nazi. Actually, there's a lot of people from Oz that are still a part of our era. The insurance guy. Yes, Jolly, we've talked about that. 6 Feet Under was a great show. Yes. And yet, Dexter was a good show because Dexter had the guy from 6 Feet Under, Michael C. Hall. Michael C. Hall plays a gay funeral director and then he becomes Dexter. So he's got a lot of range. Have a great night, Julie. Thanks for checking in. It's always good to see you. I like Dexter. It's a Showtime show. I've watched Dexter, Ray Donovan, True Detective. Game of Thrones in the beginning was pretty good too. Shrinking? We got a nomination to watch Shrinking. My friend told me to watch this German show right now. I can't remember its name. Linda, have a great night. Thanks for joining us. Of course, Kat likes Californication. She has a crush on Fox Mulder. She wants to be his Dana Scully. You know, Breaking Bad, I have not finished all of Breaking Bad, but I want to. I should. People will get mad at me. DTF. Are you trying to be naughty, Melissa? Hot tea, you're right. Not much violence in 6 Feet Under, though. I mean, The Wire is also a classic. No Hype's about to take all of his clothes and do his Nelly routine because it's getting hot in here. Yes, True Detective with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. Classic. After that, not so much. Not so much. Yes, there's a lot of nudity in Californication. Because what's his face who played Fox Mulder was the womanizer. He was womanizer and got with a lot of the younger women too. But it's fun. It's a fun little show, though. Fun little show. And I've not seen that, Laura. I'll have to check that one out too. Lincoln Lawyer. Drop your show recommendations and drop your book recommendations, fiction and nonfiction. Thank you, Margarita. But like you too. Uh-oh. Raining out there. Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Have a great night, Bella. Bella's our resident surgical nurse. Surgery nurse. Yeah, True Detective Season 1 was a classic. And Woody Harrelson, he's a little bit like his character Carson from No Country for Old Men in Season 1 there. I miss Woody. Where has Woody Harrelson been, by the way? And by the way, there's also a post where this kid looks like Woody Harrelson. And the guy comments, or the mother comments, why does my kid look like Woody Harrelson? And then Woody Harrelson actually comments on it and says, yeah, guy does look like me, except he's got more hair, which was pretty cool. I've heard a lot about Euphoria, but I have not seen it. We could do something like a movie night. Can't watch the movies because YouTube would be very angry with me for watching the movies. That's why all of the movie breakdown channels, they can't even play it. That's right, Heather. And by the way, as a reminder, this Thursday coming up, Dr. Salerno will be joining me. I'm not sure if we'll go over any true crime or not, or if you'd rather just have me talk to him. Maybe go over some narcissism content, etc. Kill Bill. So I like some Quentin Tarantino. I like the Django, Pulp Fiction, and what's the other one? Inglourious Bastards. Yeah. Woody's good. From Old White Man Can't Jump. Could they make a movie like that today? White Men Can't Jump. I remember True Blood. That was back when I was in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, I think it was. Johnny Depp and Sweeney Todd, the serial killer barber. I remember that one. He'll be alive, Tim. So I'm going to try to do something different because my recorded videos don't do as well anymore. Even interviews, really. I mean, some of them do. I mean, Dr. Z one did pretty well. But I think the interesting part will be if I have him on live, like when people super chat or whatever, we can get the questions up there. So we'll have a conversation. And if you send a super chat, you can get like specific questions answered, which would be cool. And then maybe I got a couple videos we might go over too. Sort of like, because there's guys in the narcissism space that talk about, you have to take your responsibility for being a victim. I'll show you this guy's stuff. I'll show you right now, maybe actually. Let's see if you guys think about this. What do people think when you turn on the doors? Keep your eyes on the road and your hand upon the wheel. Global molecule awakening. So watch this. Now, this guy will probably trigger you, by the way. This.
Narcissist, and there is no empath. The deeper you look, it's all ego, coping strategies, and self-preservation. And for us to see ourselves, we need the opposite mirror to expose our patterns. But we just take a list of observable features and expressions and attribute it to the person as if that's their whole truth, when it's a coping strategy being protected by the defense mechanisms of the ego. The deeper you look, you realize we're just children hoping we can get the parent to change, one by fawning and the other by fighting, now meeting up as adults, in inverted commas, playing out the same scenarios of their childhood. So for you, the empath, because you're always the ones feeling sorry for yourselves, what it feels like when you go up to someone and get gaslit, that's what it felt like for you when you approached your parents with emotional needs and got rebuffed. And that became imprinted on your mind. This is life. This is planet Earth. This is love. And now you have romantic relationships and the same thing is happening and you're blaming the other person because you can't see your own programs, which is how the ego works. It's protecting your programs by making them the narcissist. That makes them the bad guy.
So if you know anything about what I think about these things, I got a lot of problems with what he's saying. But my point in showing this is I might show this to Dr. Salerno too, so we can break it down.
Therefore, you have nothing to look at because you're good, correct, righteous, and superior, which I thought what that was traits of narcissism. You'll see it's all just the ego, but 99% of people talking about this stuff have no idea how the mind functions or how the ego functions. So they take the surface level expressions, attribute it to the person, label them, brandish them, and then stand there being all righteous and I know what's going on when none of them have a bloody clue. the most traumatic thing for me to do these days is watch Instagram videos, because for me, knowing what I know, it's shocking what people are spreading out there. Shocking.
There is no narcissist part 2.
A lot of you that understood yesterday's video asked me, how do I break out of the narcissistic empath dynamic? So here we go, the best I can do in 90 seconds. The first step is stop labeling them as a narcissist, because
I don't agree with that. Thank you very much there, Eminem, for the super sticker here. I really appreciate your support on the channel. Thank you very much. So the benefit of labeling someone, it's not even about their label. It's just so that you can know how to best move forward. That's the point. That's the point of doing it. So that you can say, okay, I know to not jade, justify, argue, defend, or explain. Or I know I'm not going to be able to have a healthy relationship with them. So I got to walk away and do what's best for me. That's the benefit of doing it.
you're dehumanizing them. They're a child like you, a child of God, another human being that's doing their best to survive with the programs they've got. They are mirroring to you your block to feeling guilt, your abandonment issues, and your blocks to feeling rage, your fear of conflict, your fear of speaking your authentic truth, and much more. They're also exposing how your safety is externalized, your self-worth is externalized by learning to not trust your own intuitive expression, by it meeting so many undesirable reactions from your parents as a child. You learn to scan your environment for safety. So when your environment changes, you feel unsafe. So all of these things the narcissist is exposing, and your ego, to protect your programs, projects onto them as the narcissist, so that you don't have to see any of the list of things I just mentioned.
So this is the spiritual. So this is my ultimate problem with how people like him see it. Is his view is a very selfish worldview in a way, because in his worldview, it's all about you. Everyone in the world is really just about you. They're mirroring back to you. No one's their own autonomous person doing their own things because they have their own genetics. They're all just a mirror of you. And I don't always buy that. Do not always buy that at all.
So first, stop labeling them a narcissist. 2, come from compassion. See it for what it is. When somebody is freaking out, that is the expression of their own resistance, their own inner turmoil, which is coming out of their mouth and being projected onto you because they don't see themselves. If you can't see them because you can't see yourself, you will take these words personally, and they will trigger all of those wounds, and you will defend yourself, and you'll bounce that energy back, which escalates the trigger, which escalates the dynamic, which, you know, after 2 or 3 years and 20 or 30 or 40 really nasty arguments, it can turn into fighting. It can turn into domestic violence. That's the core of it, is neither one wanting to see themselves or hold their own emotions. If you can come from compassion and see that they have an emotional need that they can't express, you break that pattern. Doesn't mean that they're going to suddenly get it, but you're going to stop resisting them, and you're going to stop pushing the energy back, which is making them even more distressed. What's the cost? Is that if you stop reacting when they're screaming and freaking out, you're going to start feeling the feelings that you didn't want to feel when you bounce the energy back by defending yourself, by justifying your position, by trying to look like the good person, by avoiding the guilt and by avoiding the conflicts from inside yourself. You create it outside of yourself. You're going to feel really uncomfortable. It's going to what I call inner earthquakes. It's going to shake you to the core. It's not nice, but by not wanting to feel it, you feed the dynamic you're desperate to break out of. That's the best I can do today. I might do another video.
So with him, I mean, some of it I can agree with, but certainly not all of it. Like a lot of it, he can really, I feel like, trick people. Oh, look at this guy. You see this one. Oh, how you co-create toxicity. This is an interesting one.
You're not an empath, and they're not a narcissist. If you were an empath, you would have compassion for what they're saying behind the words they're using. And even though it comes across as the most...
Indeed, I did get a haircut, Dana. And I couldn't disagree more with what he just said. I'll rewind it so you can hear. Or can I even do it?
You're not an empath and they're not a narcissist. If you were an empath, you would have compassion for what they're saying behind the words they're using.
If you were an empath, you would be having compassion for the words behind what are the feelings. It's like, no. Like, you don't need to put, she's basically saying you need to empathize with your abuser, which is not what you need to do. And even I said something here. I said to him, when someone is in their situation, the only thing you should be telling them is to walk away and do what is best for them. Yes or yes?
And even though it comes across as the most malicious, evil, and dark language, what you are not hearing is the begging for emotional care that they can't identify with, a language they never learned. They are in total fight or flight, survival, day in, day out. And guess what? So are you, but in a different pattern. And yours is to defend your good nature, the ego protecting the good, correct, superior, better, and more values of survival in the mental realm. So when you defend yourself against the narcissistic input because you don't understand what they're actually saying, you're sending the message of defectiveness and shame. They're hearing behind the language, I'm still not worthy. I still can't be seen. No one's ever going to meet my needs. And it's compounding more and more shame, which is making them become more defensive, which is making you more defensive. You're playing hot potato with the same emotions that nobody wants to take responsibility for. And from this...
So his other thing is everything he's doing here, it's the environmental approach, right? Oh, they just didn't get the love they needed from their parents. There was that trauma going on, and they didn't individuate from their mothers. That's that school of thinking. Dr. Salerno's school of thinking is like a lot of that startup material, the startup material to become a narcissist it's got to be there. There's got to be enough of it from the beginning, from birth, for you to truly become a narcissist. We're not just talking about some narcissistic behaviors. We're talking about a real narcissist. And that's the genetic part. It cuts through this, right? That's why it's important too. And that's also why a lot of people push back on it, because it does cut through the environmental approach. The people who want to blame their trauma, for example, I'm this way because of trauma. Well, the genetic piece doesn't let them do that, which is one of the reasons people like Dr. Salerno get a lot of pushback on what he says.
It can escalate into violence. It can escalate into grabbing. People talk about strangling, all these things. I'm not condoning violence in any way. But if nobody takes responsibility for their emotions that you can't see because the ego is protecting you from it, then it escalates. Your job is to stop reacting, stop defending yourself, and ask them what they need. I really mean this.
So he's half right. Yes, stop reacting, stop defending yourself, but then do nothing. You don't need to ask them what they need. All they're going to do is be committed to misinterpreting you and then being antagonistic, blaming you. If they're a narcissist, you can't ask them what they need. It's just not going to work. Like, if anything, they might think you're belittling them if you ask them what they need, because they'll think that you're trying to act like you're better than them or something. They wouldn't like that either. So yeah, don't react. Don't get sucked in, but then just disengage, leave. Don't do what he's saying here.
Stop defending, because that is your contribution to what you call narcissistic abuse. And you call it abuse because you can't see, or you don't want to see, that you play a role in contributing into this dynamic. And the name the empath gives to the resistance to their own healing is the narcissist. That's how you avoid your work. As hard as it is to see, I wouldn't be telling you this if I hadn't figured it out myself. I'd make a hell of a lot more money if I enabled the victim mentality and focused only on how horrible the narcissist is, because they manipulate, they gaslight, they diminish, they twist, they deflect. That's obvious to see, but you don't see why they do it or why you defend yourself against it. It's all a block to inadequacies, guilt, shame, insecurities, and huge emotional abandonment and neglect as children. You both went different ways to the same pain. We are all
environmental view. This is the problem with the environmental view, in my eyes, is that a true personality disorder is not just a trauma response. It's not CPTSD. It's just not.
Product of dysfunctional family units, and that's the cards we've been dealt, and we're here to transform them. So understand the mirror that's coming to you, the reminder of discomfort. Feel it, stop defending yourself, and let's get onto the level of expressing needs, and you will break free from it, but it will be distressing as hell.
So, like I said, I don't disagree with all of it, but many of it I do. So what should we listen to? The last one we'll listen to, the victim mindset. Let's see if I agree with this.
When you say they manipulated me, that is a victim mindset perspective, and that is your ego protecting your pain and your programs. When you say they controlled me, it's exactly the same thing. You have no responsibility, and your ego is protecting the programs that played into this controlled dynamic. When you say they betrayed me.
So the problem with this is more than one thing can be true at the same time. So someone can do these things. They can be controlling. They can betray you, cheat on you. That's true. Calling it out doesn't mean you're a victim. Now, perhaps staying in a woe's me permanently, maybe that would be. But simply recognizing what you're dealing with is not the victim mindset.
What are you still doing hanging around? Why are you taking their behavior personally? You're outsourced. Your self-worth, your perspectives are coming from outside in, not inside out. The ego is so good at protecting your patterns and programs, especially when they're socially acceptable ones, like people-pleasing, fawning, and outsourcing your self-worth. People that control and betray and manipulate, that's how your ego protects you from seeing yourself, because they look so bad, it's socially unacceptable. But those are the behaviors that are the mirrors to your programs. They don't look the same, but they mirror you by how you interact with the mirror. That's the point. When you say they manipulated me.
All right. That's enough of that. So again, it's like with a lot of the new age spiritual stuff, there's a little bit of truth in some of it, but then they take it too far and they kind of twist it, distort it. And usually it winds up with the other problem I have with it is it gives the abusive people a free pass. It's like, now, the first thing you should be doing is calling out the abuser's behavior. That's one. And yeah, there is a point where eventually people do need to work on themselves. But that doesn't mean how they were treated was their fault or they were co-creating it. I think that's a big distinction. Once we understand, though, and once we're aware, yes, once we know better, it is our responsibility to do better. But if we didn't know, and it was just part of our upbringing of, okay, maybe we had a narcissistic parent, this looked familiar to me, I was conditioned to associate the behaviors of a narcissist with love, sure, that happens all the time. But again, once we know better and we see these patterns, then it is our responsibility to leave once we notice. That's true. That is true. 'Tis true, cat. 'Tis true. Yeah, my ears are lowered. Hot tea? I agree with you. You need some ASMR as they talk about narcissists and victims. So I might play some of that for Dr. Salerno. Or maybe another one I want to play for Dr. Salerno is I was watching Dr. Romney on Lewis Howes, and she was talking about how all narcissists are just full of self-loathing. I don't know if Dr. Salerno would want to play it with me, but I don't think he would agree with that. And I don't think I agree with that either, by the way. I think sometimes they hate themselves, but not always. A lot of people would love to think they do, but I don't think it's always true. Thank you, Reggie. I did. Bill the barber in South Jersey. The truth will set you free, but it might be painful at first. That is also true. And that's also true, Jolly. When you're a child, you're stuck there. I'm talking more about when you're an adult. Once you're an adult and you like recognize the dynamics, because if you've been following me for a while, you know the dynamics by now. Like, you know them. I've talked about so many different versions of the dynamics. I'm pretty sure if people have followed me, they wouldn't be able to get fooled again. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident in saying that. I mean, Jolly and Kat and others would know. They would know if that's true. I mean, Dexter is a psychopath. What we getting real about, Jensky? Let's talk about sex. It's a real burden. How so? The inflation of ego. Well, we do live in an era where social media facilitates the inflation of ego for sure. And the inflation of ego gets rewarded. That's the big one too. So here's the thing. Here's the problem, folks. Narcissistic behaviors are getting rewarded left and right with short-term mating success and financial success. And until that's not true, we're always going to be seeing narcissists. And even Dr. Salerno said, right, even if we were to put all of them on an island through the random variation, the genetic variation, narcissists, psychopaths would pop up again. They just would. Something to keep in mind. 40 years old is the age of champions. Have a great night there, Jimmy Ackhouse. We're about to wrap it up here, too. Wanted to chat with you all for a minute. Yeah, I'm not sure what she meant by that, Miss Kim. I'll have to ask her. I think she was just maybe auditioning for the Chuckle Hut. I mean, if you go back 2 to 3 years of shorts, there's literally probably thousands, honestly. Thousands of my shorts, you'll learn. Although, if you go back 3 years ago, I might have updated my thinking on some of them, depending on what it was. So, but if you watch the last year and a half, after I met Salerno, I did update some of my thinking on some of the things. That is correct, Jolly. As Jackson Brown would say, doctor my eyes. Have seen the fears of the slow parade of tears. You just go back a year. Go back a year to two of shorts. They're all 60 seconds. Kat will tell you, and so will Jolly. No. All right, everybody, though. Make sure you like the video here while you're still here. I've ordered a hit on the like button. Slap that like button. Spank it. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I will most likely be back tomorrow night, a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern or around 10 p.m. Eastern. Yes, it is, Miss Kim, 773. Not quite what I was hoping for. But what are you going to do? So yes, have a great night, Tim. Glad to hear you learning, D. Learning is a side effect of being here. Whether you like it or not, you come to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect and the Shepherd of Black Sheep, you'll learn. You'll learn. Bad night? You've had a bad night? Oh, my likes are a bad night. You're right about that. Have a great night, Melissa. Well, I mean, Brian Etton's gone. Ashley Banfield's gone. So we're having to do more stuff on our own. You got it, Autumn. Thanks for being here. That girl, Melly. That one girl, Melly, excuse me. People should check out her channel as well. That one girl, Melly. How about that, Snow Baby? No political stuff here as of now. What's a little shocking there, Christy? The narcissism stuff or the true crime stuff? You got it, Teresa. You have a great night. Animal, you too. No hype. We were all hyped to see no hype. You got it, Eva. Thanks for popping in here. We always appreciate you. Christy says, I was an extra in a movie once. Jared is called 3 O'Clock High in the 80s with Casey Masco. I'll have to check that out then, Christy. Ah, interesting. So you're a former movie star. Have a good night, Wendy. Kat, good night. Allison, good night. Tech, good night. Giving it up for Jared. I love to hear that, Reggie. Reggie 254. You got it, that one girl. We got to have a prosperity mentality around here, right? Helping each other out. I see what No Hype did there. It's good. You have a great night there, No Hype. Justin, you have a good night as well, sir. Until next time, everybody. Glad we got a great group here.